rock you crazy.
Son, can you help me with my iPad?
You kidding me?
I'm sorry.
Did you ask your daughter?
She told me to ask you. You are a knowledgeable sir.
Fine. Come over here. Let me see you try. I'm gonna see you try it. Come here. So what's the problem?
No, I'm going to start how I always start, okay?
Just all over it. Were you raised in a barn?
I started out this morning. I wasn't going to do
I need to see you try. Do it.
I think something's different because, you know, the new year.
What?
The bolt, the airplane, or the bolt, the lightning bolt.
Are you serious?
The lightning bolt.
Figure it out. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. Fine, I'll do it. Like I do everything. All right. What's your Apple ID password?
The one I used to get into the library.
The library?
Yeah, it's got a little smiling monkey. You push
Maybe
that.
we need some consequences. Dad, maybe no more pickleball.
Son, that will not help me get to my ebooks.
You're not gonna figure it out, okay? I wasn't born yesterday.
Yeah, I know, I was there.
Watch it, young old man.
Middle mouth.
You know what? That's it. No other choice. I'm taking the CPAP.
Oh God, don't do that, please.
Yeah, good luck. Sleep. Choking to death.
Yeah,
You'll
and
remember.
the dog will be barking, and your mom will be barking. So
I don't know what else to do.
That's how I have indigestion now. At least I own my house.
All the powers to govern themselves, but none of the powers to threaten us. And what that means is that in the tiny area between the Jordan River
Check it out, guys. So this is called the Silly Gun. This is a patented device that is so much smaller of a caulk gun than your traditional system like this. And I just want to show you like for like. So with a full tube of caulking, you're looking at 25 inches here from end to end. And if you're trying to caulk around a toilet, it makes it nearly impossible. And a lot of times we end up with half of a used caulk bottle like this one. So I'm going to demonstrate to you how easy this is to load and what the huge advantage is to this system. So first of all, it has the tool right here that you can just pop out. So you pull it to the side, you can pierce the caulk bottle, and then you simply pop it back into its place like that. And next, what you're going to do is just pull on this tab right here, and it's actually going to slip these little grooves right here inside of the tube of caulking. As you can see, it slips in. And now once we're in, we're simply going to go like this, and it's going to start feeding that caulk out. And it's at the same time, it's cutting the tube of caulking, which is amazing. So once we get to the point that we're starting to feed out, you'll notice too that it has an to where it continues running out. It doesn't do that. It just stops and nothing continues to come out of here. If anything, it's really, really, really slow. And I haven't had to do anything like pull a separate trigger to get that to happen. Now, whereas with this one, if I'm caulking something and I just stop, you can see how much more is coming out right now. I'm not even doing anything and more is coming out. And that's what this thing is for. In order to get it to stop, you have to press this button. With the Silly Gun, it takes all of the brain power out. That's as much as has come out, and we didn't have to press any special buttons. So check this out. Still a full length tube of caulk at 11 inches, but look how much shorter, and you're still able to use this. Now it gets even better. So now what we can do, if we need additional space, you can take and just cut this excess off, just like that. And now we have this same exact caulk gun in a 9-inch platform. Easily run around toilets and things of that nature. You can also hook this easily with the hook that's on the back, and it also has a strap here on the bottom so you can hang it like this. And just overall an awesome tool. These are 30% off currently. They're 28 bucks for one of these. And you can replace any of the chintzy caulk guns that you have, or the more expensive ones. I probably spent $30 on this one, and it's really bulky, and I much rather would have just got the Silly Gun, and this thing works awesome. If you want us to DM you a link for this product, just comment the word SILLY, S-I-L-I, in the comment section, and we'll DM you a link. Happy DIYing, guys.
As I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I take a look. Shady. Turn bitter, It's the motherfucking D.O.W.E. Snoop Doggy. I don't know what you heard about me, but a bitch can get. I love you.
In the creek today, I'm showing off the brand new M18 Milwaukee Gold sluice pipe. It runs off the same batteries as the drill and the impact, so if you've already got those, you're set. Red motor on top, transparent tube, and that red auger inside does all the heavy lifting. Nugs, baby. Grab yours from Home Depot today and hit your local creek. It'll pay itself off in no time. It's only $1,500 with no battery or charger included.
YouTubers are doing more to prevent development in the state of Florida than the bureaucrats are. Danny Duncan bought 95 acres in Inglewood to keep it from being developed. And now he's having a problem getting greenbelt on his property because the tax collector is being, what, difficult?
Very difficult.
His tax bill is high, right?
So it was $47,000, and they raised it to $57,000. This year alone, it went from $57,000 to $97,000, which I heard there's a 10% rule, which seems to be a little over that.
So you tried to save the land from development, you ended up getting punished for it, financially.
Yeah, I think if you're a developer, you get rewarded. If you're saving land, you get punished. It's interesting.
Have you thought about changing your name to Pat Neal?
No, not yet.
I hear Pat Neal gets what Pat Neal wants.
Yeah, Pat Neal can do whatever he wants.
You're not a land developer, and you're not going to build on this property. You just want to keep it, like, I don't think people knew you had horses and emus and donkeys and chickens.
Yeah, and this is like you said, this is the hobby stuff. We did do everything correctly.
You actually want to get into agriculture, but they're keeping you from getting into
Whether
agriculture.
you do it legitimately or not, it doesn't count. In their eyes.
And you actually do have animals, too. And they look like they wouldn't bite an honest man.
She bites. Look, I actually got her for free because she bites.
I'm running for Ag Commissioner in 2026. We're going to be fixing our broken greenbelt laws. Visit treadback.com to see how you can help us save Florida.
I'm Matt the Welder. He's Danny Duncan, and we really missed undeveloped Florida.
All right, Chiefy, listen up. The internet says you're not allowed to kill coyotes anymore, okay? Sorry, bud. You gotta let those calves get born and have coyotes run up and eat their faces off as they're coming out. And your favorite barn cat, let her get gobbled right up too. And I'll take you downtown, shove you in my purse, and we can go shopping. How does that sound, Chiefy? Yeah. No more coyotes for you, big guy.
Talks about a data center here in Mason County have been ongoing since last spring. This is the home of Ida Huddleston. She has been offered $60,000 an acre for her land to make way for this project. Her home sits on 71 acres.
And what they proposed and have carried on with us is not a business deal. It's a mind harassment.
Offered millions on multiple occasions. This is Ida's message.
I said, I don't want your money. I don't need your money. But I do feel sorry for everybody around us that they're going to be affected by it.
Same goes for Ida's daughter, Delcia Bear, who turned down a $48,000 an acre offer for her 463-acre property. Particularly frustrating for Bear is the fact that the Fortune 100 company behind the project has not been revealed.
And so when they will not reveal who they are, that's a major player in what you're going to do with the rest of your life if you're stuck here or even if you're leaving here.
Don't start smoking cannabis or you'll become one of those people. Like me, you'll become a fiend, forever chasing the next high, turning everything into an apparatus to consume the devil's lettuce. Every tool in your belt becoming a utensil of your own destruction. Your friends will stop asking, "How are you?" and start asking, "What is that?" as you proudly unveil your latest portable solution made from a hammer or a loofah, and always pure self-delusion. It's a gateway into the nether regions of your soul. No matter how much you use, it's never enough. Like a dog chases its tail, except the tail is made of smoke and keeps vanishing into your lungs. One hit? No. You'll need 2 to balance the vibe, then 3 to unlock the flavor notes. Then before you know it, you're puffing out of an apple like you're back in the 6th grade because you just can't stop. Your lighter will live in your hand like a 6th finger. A coffee mug? That's a pipe. Cutting board? Luxury rig. You'll look at a traffic cone and think, with a little duct tape, Maybe you'll swear you're just chillin', but you're actually an addict in tie-dye hunting the next cloud like it's the meeting of life. One day you'll blink and realize your chill has a schedule, a budget, and a secret stash hidden in a hollowed-out copy of Lord of the Rings. So yeah, don't start. Unless, of course, you're into that kind of creative, deeply committed, slightly unhinged lifestyle. Then by all means, pass the paintbrush.
I think all of that is a very good signal that there is beginning to be a better understanding, both by the president and the people around him, as well as by the leaders of our European allies, that there can be common ground amongst us. And the kind of dismissiveness that we saw in the first Trump administration has been replaced by a much more obvious working relationship to the good of European security, transatlantic security, and hopefully Ukrainian security. So I'm actually encouraged.
I'm going to spin on him with that whirly kick. You know, the cyclone thing, the, what do you call it? Help me out, pal.
Tatsumaki Senpukyaku.
Yeah, that's it. The tater salmon scent pajama.
Close enough.
I'm gonna kick him like, what's that? The spinning foot. Help me here.
Hyaku Retsukyaku.
Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna do the Hyaku, what you call, I'm gonna hit him with the Hyaku Retsu ketchup.
Close enough.
I'm gonna hit him with the spiral thing, the boom, you know.
Sonic Bloom.
Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna give him a Sonic Bloom.
Close enough.
I'm gonna burn him. I'm gonna use my yoga, what's the flame thing? Help me out, man.
Yoga flame.
Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna Yuggy flame it.
Close enough.
Tucker is smart. He knows exactly what he's doing. But like so many in the commentary business, the clicks and the giggles have contributed to a terminal case of brain rot. True, actual, undeniable brain rot.
Diabetes! Whoa, Wilfred, everything okay?
Oh, yeah. Just had to let it out of the system.
Shouted it like a battle cry.
Sometimes the word needs a little thunder behind it. Keeps people awake.
All right.
Especially about their blood sugar.
All right, I just wanted to be sure you weren't about...
Here's a fun fact. Back in the 1950s, the CIA genetically engineered and created the tomato hornworm. The goal was to invade people's home gardens, decimate their tomatoes, and prevent people from growing food on their own property. How about that?
People, come on, Tina, get in here. And since it's built like a mattress in the shape of a chair, and you can get two people in there, well, Netflix and chill just got upgraded in the living room. Also, if you want to do yoga or push-ups, this is great exercise right here. So you can up your game since it's built like a mattress.
This is the end.
Ship my pants. Right here? Ship my pants, you're kidding. You can ship your pants right here. You hear that? I can ship my pants for free.
Wow, I just may ship my pants.
Yeah, ship your pants. Billy, you can ship your pants too.
I can't wait to ship my pants, Dad.
I just shipped my pants, and it's very convenient.
Very convenient.
I just shipped my drawers.
I just shipped my nightie.
I just shipped my bed. If you can't find what you're looking for in store, we'll find it at Kmart.com.
Hi. And how are you? I'm good. And how are you? Yes. Some weather we're having.
Still gay? Yeah, it is. Welcome to the United States of Israel, where we sell our bodies to make a good living. The public education system is cooked, college degrees cost a lifetime of debt, and even if you have one, you'll still struggle to find work. The blue-collar route, well, not much better. Meanwhile, Israel has free healthcare for all. They're paid a government allowance per child. Degrees are 10 times cheaper to attain, and so much more. Wow, how did they become so progressive? Well, we pay for it, of course. Yep, 300 billion US tax dollars given directly to genocidal Zionists. In fact, the only thing our politicians can agree on both sides of the aisle is to bend over and spread them for Prime Minister Daddy Netanyahu. Y'all know the price for high treason? These AIPAC-funded chomos gotta go. Ew, he's anti-Semitic. Don't start. We're not talking Jewish heritage. We're talking psychopathic war criminals. Ew, he's talking politics? Put me on mute then. Keep your head down. Eat your goyim slop, your genetically modified fast food that's chemically castrating you. Oh, good job not complaining. Here's 3 schmeckles for you. Don't say anything about Gaza. It's funny, I spend a lifetime with depression. I get on TRT, it's going like that. Look at the studies. Our hormones are being tampered with. This GMO food, the medicine, the SSRIs, it's poisoning us. Why? Well, because a nation of depressed and downtrodden people poses no threat. We'll roll over for our masters. Oh, I upset you. I'm so sorry. Here's the door.
You've already been told about strangers dressing up in uniforms, but there are other traps you need to know about.
Hi, I'm just playing with my daughter's video game, but the batteries seem to be dead. I have some in my car. Why don't you come over and help me put them in?
In the summer of 2009, the federal government launched Cash for Clunkers. Turn in your old car, get up to $4,500 toward a new fuel-efficient one. Help the environment, boost the economy. Everyone wins. Real mechanics knew better. What Cash for Clunkers actually did was execute a calculated, government-mandated destruction of the most reliable analog vehicles ever built in America. Nearly 700,000 running cars and trucks were deliberately killed, not parted out, not donated, destroyed on purpose, by law, before they were crushed. And the used car market that working Americans had depended on for generations was never the same again. This is the forensic audit of how they did it, what they killed, what replaced it, and what you need to know before the next phase of this trap locks into place in 2026. Number 1, the liquid glass execution. To qualify for the rebate, dealerships were legally required to destroy the engine of every trade-in before it left the lot. They could not resell it. They could not part it out. They had to kill it. The method was sodium silicate solution, liquid glass. Mechanics drained the engine oil from each qualifying vehicle and replaced it with sodium silicate. Then they started the engine and let it run. The sodium silicate heated and crystallized inside the block. Metal surfaces that were supposed to glide began grinding. Within minutes, the pistons seized. The crankshaft stopped. The engine welded itself into a useless mass of metal that would never turn again. Footage from dealerships that summer shows mechanics standing over hoods, watching engines smoke and knock and die. Some of them looked like they were attending a funeral. In a sense, they were. Number 2, eradicating the forever engines. The trade-ins that rolled into dealerships that summer were not junk. They included some of the most indestructible engines American manufacturing ever produced. The Jeep 4.0-liter inline 6-cylinder, a cast-iron block with a simple design, engineered so far beyond its tolerances that Cherokee owners routinely drove past 300,000 miles and kept going. Parts were everywhere. A teenager with basic mechanical knowledge could rebuild one on a weekend. The GM3800 V6, installed in Buicks and Pontiacs through the 1990s and into the 2000s. Consumer Reports called it one of the most reliable engines ever produced. Owners talked about these engines the way old ranchers talked about a good working horse. They just did not quit. Both of them shared one thing the auto industry in 2009 desperately needed to eliminate. They were repairable by ordinary people. No proprietary software, no dealer visit required. Parts at any auto parts store. You cannot sell a working class family a new $40,000 SUV on a 7-year loan if their 1998 Jeep Cherokee refuses to die. The forever engines had to go, so they went. Number 3, the computer on wheels trap. Once the analog cars were crushed, the replacement vehicles waiting at those same dealerships were built on a completely different philosophy. Starting around 2010, the industry began replacing mechanical controls with software interfaces. The tactile knobs and dials that let you adjust your climate control and radio without looking away from the road began disappearing. In their place came touchscreen displays running proprietary software. A 2002 Silverado with a broken blower motor is a $30 part and an afternoon. A 2019 Ram 1500 with a failed Uconnect screen is a dealer visit, a proprietary replacement unit, a software flash.
Tell me a sound that's better than this. Daddy!
Cocaine has, he's got a baggie! It's an 8-ball! He's got an 8-ball! And cocaine goes fucking crazy! Cocaine is fired up, brother! Coke slam to the depths of hell!
Now, son, what you millennials and you Gen Zers don't seem to understand is that if you just ate food at home, you wouldn't be in debt. It's not rocket science.
No, Dave, you don't understand. I'm already working 60 hours a week just to put food on the table for my family.
Well, there you go. There's 168 hours in a week, Buttercup. Sounds like you have a little bit of time left over.
Sure, whatever. But my point is, Dave, that boomers like yourself don't understand that groceries are getting more expensive, not to mention healthcare and childcare.
Okay. Listen here, buddy. Groceries have never been expensive, all right? All you guys do is complain. Oh, Dave, my grocery bill. Oh, Dave, my medical bills, my child care bills. I remember when the only bills we used to talk about were Clinton and Murray, all right? You're lazy, pal. It's just that simple, because if you have a job and you work hard, just like I did in 1978, you're going to be just fine.
Believe it or not, Dave, I'm already working hard for my family, and we're still struggling. Do you have any actual advice?
I do. Here's my actual advice. Buddy, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and make sure you've got $1,000 in your savings account.
Holy balls, Dave. If our family had an extra $1,000 lying around, we wouldn't be struggling to...
Goodness gracious. Talk about a guy that's just disconnected from reality. Are you kidding me? Buddy needs to quit drinking his Starbucks and getting his avocado toast. Otherwise, he's going to be in some real trouble. Unbelievable.
Wait, so you're telling me in the future, people just stare at a little box all day, inside and outside?
And in the future, you don't even own the music, you just pay every month to borrow it? Like, if you stop paying, the music just disappears?
Wait, so before people eat, they take a picture of the food and show strangers? And the strangers like and comment on it? So in the future, everyone has their own phone and they use it to type messages instead of call? And if someone calls you without typing it first, it's considered rude? So you're telling me in the future, people just post their diary for everyone to see?
Some people get paid for it.
For their diary? And in the future, a little box just tells you where to go, turn by turn, and people still get lost? If you want food from a restaurant, you just tap the box and a stranger brings it to your door, and you pay extra for that, and then you rate the stranger? Our moms always say don't talk to strangers, but in the future, everyone just talks to strangers all day on the little box and shows them their house and their kids? So in the future, nobody ever just sits with the quiet? Like ever? That sounds really exhausting. In the future, everyone's connected to everything, and people are still lonely? Okay, but do we at least still stay outside until the streetlights come on?
I'm not right, I'm not left, I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat, I'm not Libertarian. I'm a human fucking being, and I want what's best for the other human beings. And I want some common sense. And I want to be left alone, and I want to pay low taxes. And I want to be able to build and prosper, and I want all the things that were promised to me in the Constitution of this country. And until we all stop identifying with left or right or Republican or Democrat or gay, straight or black or white, all the shit, until we figure that out, we're going to continue to be abused by all these people that have power. Cheers.
Dear Lord.
That's classic.
You spin my head right round when you go down, when you go down, down.
You spin my head right around when you go down, when you go down, down.
I got the house with my swagger, hop in that whip, yo, I got places.
Welcome to the Independent Review, a weekly podcast where we bring you the latest from the world of independent journalism.
Well, it's 40 below and I don't give a fuck. Got a heater in my truck and I'm off to the rodeo. And it's down, I'm on the left and down, I'm on the right. Come on, you fucking let me get your right step right. Get off stage, goddamn kook, you know. You piss me off. Fucking jerk, get on my nerves. Well, here comes Johnny with his pecker in his hand. He's a one-ball man and he's off to the rodeo. And it's down, I'm on the left and down, I'm on the right. Come on, you fucking let me get your right step right. Get off stage, goddamn gook, you know. Piss me off, fucking jerk, get on my nerves. Cause I'm off the rodeo. Down, I'm on the left and down, I'm on the right. Come on, you fucking let me get your right step right. Get off stage, goddamn kook, you know. You piss me off, fucking jerk. Get on my nerves. Well, here comes Johnny with his pecker in his hand. He's a one-ball man and he's off the rodeo. And it's down, I'm on the left and down, I'm on the right. Come on, you fucking let me get your right step right. Get off stage, goddamn good, you know. Piss me off, fucking jerk. Get on my nerves.
Welcome to the Independent Review, live on AM Wake Up on Odyssey, Rumble, Substack, and the Indie News Network on Twitter. Let's jump right into this first clip from Dave DeCamp of antiwarnews.com.
Hey, this is Dave DeCamp from antiwar.com, and welcome to Anti-War News. It's about 9:30 on Wednesday night here in the beautiful state of Virginia, where it was about 87 degrees today, so pretty hot. But anyway, we have a lot of stuff to get through, as always, and I know I keep saying it, but just can't believe that we're actually living through this war, that they actually did it. And the first story at the top of antiwar.com today is something we already know, but more evidence. Pentagon probe finds the U.S. is responsible for bombing Iran elementary school. So the U.S. is responsible for bombing an elementary school in Minab, southern Iran, during the opening hours of the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran on February 28th, a strike that massacred 175 people, the vast majority being young schoolgirls and schoolboys. And this is according to a preliminary U.S. military investigation. People briefed on the investigation told the New York Times that it appeared that U.S. Central Command had created target coordinates for the strike using outdated information from the Defense Intelligence Agency. And you see this picture here. This is the overhead shot of the graves being dug for all these children who were massacred. And I think in the years ahead, this is going to be a defining picture of this war. So the school building was previously part of a nearby Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps base, but was separated and turned into a school sometime between 2013 and 2016, meaning that the U.S. military may have used information that was over a decade old. The U.S. military has been using artificial intelligence to help with targeting, but according to this report and this investigation, it appeared that the strike on the school was the result of a human error. The Times said that it reviewed satellite imagery showing that watchtowers that once stood near the building had been removed. 3 public entrances were open to the school. Ground was cleared. Play areas, including a sports field, were painted on asphalt, and walls were painted blue and pink. So essentially, it looked like a school from overhead. And Middle East Eye reported that the school was hit by 2 separate strikes, so a double tap type attack here. And that essentially what happened was the school was bombed, and then the teachers got most of the kids together, or all of the kids together, and brought them to a prayer hall in the school. And then another missile struck and killed just about all of the survivors of the initial strike. So they were all huddled together when this happened. So anyway, this is what an Iranian Red Crescent medic told Middle East Eye. Quote, when the first bomb hit the school, one of the teachers and the principal moved a group of students to the prayer hall to protect them. The principal called the parents and told them to come and pick up their children. But the second bomb hit that area as well, and only a small number of those who had taken shelter survived, end quote. So the parents were on their way to go pick up their kids when the second missile struck. I mean, these are horrors that are hard to even fathom. And I can't think of any one single massacre that was this bad, committed by the U.S. military in this, in recent decades. So far, there's been no confirmation or acknowledgement from U.S. officials that the school was struck twice, but there's been other reports from people on the ground that said, yes, it was bombed once and then bombed again. And it's been clear since the day of or the day after the bombing that this was most likely a U.S. military strike. And then there was footage that came out of a Tomahawk missile hitting the IRGC base nearby, showing that Tomahawk missiles were used in the attack. There was debris of a Tomahawk missile found at the scene. Yet President Trump is trying to claim, just a couple days ago that it was Iran somehow. He even said, I think I mentioned this, but that Iran has Tomahawk missiles, which is completely nonsensical. And then he was asked on Wednesday about the New York Times report, and he said he didn't know. He claimed he didn't know. He was asked, are you going to take responsibility for this as the commander-in-chief? And he said, I don't know about that. Basically, I haven't heard that. And Pete Hegseth, the U.S. Secretary of War, who, by the way, would not back up Trump's claim that that Iran bombed the school. Whenever he's asked about it, he says, we're investigating. He can't even say, what a tragedy, how horrible that this is, and we're going to look into it. No, he can't even say that. But what does he say? What is he constantly saying in these press briefings that he's doing? That they're not using stupid rules of engagement. It's not a politically correct war, that they're operating and hitting Iran without mercy. And the result here is a massacre of little school kids. And I mean, there must be consequences for this. Somebody, obviously, we know there's not going to be any kind of real justice for this. But I mean, are they even going to do something symbolically? I wouldn't put it past this administration to just do nothing about this. Not even apologize. So the next one here, Iranian drone attack was worse than the U.S. military revealed. So more covering up from the Pentagon, from Hegseth's Pentagon. So CBS News reported on Wednesday that an Iranian drone attack that hit a makeshift U.S. military operations center at a port in Kuwait on March 1st and killed at least 6 U.S. troops was much worse than the Pentagon had revealed. Sources told CBS that dozens of U.S. service members suffered injuries, including brain trauma, shrapnel wounds, burns, and at least one soldier may need an amputation. As of Tuesday night, more than 30 U.S. troops are still hospitalized from the attack, including 12 at Walter Reed Medical Center in the suburbs of D.C. and about 25 at a medical center in Germany. The Pentagon has not disclosed all the injuries, and they only admitted that at least 140 U.S. soldiers have been injured after that Reuters report. They have not been coming out with this information. They want to hide it. They don't want the public to freak out too much about this large number of American casualties. And so far, they've confirmed the death of 8 U.S. soldiers, including 7 who they say were killed by Iranian attacks, and 1 who they say died of an unspecified medical emergency in Kuwait. All right, so the next one here, the Department of War is using Palantir AI to pick targets in Iran. So this one's from Kyle Anzalone from the Libertarian Institute. So the Pentagon is using an artificial intelligence system developed by Palantir to select targets in Iran. Some members of Congress are considering legislation to place restrictions and safeguards on the Department of War's use of AI. Two congressional sources speaking with NBC News confirmed the use of this Palantir targeting. And Representative Sarah Jacobs said, quote, AI tools are not 100% reliable. They can fail in subtle ways, and yet operators continue to overtrust them. We have a responsibility to enforce strict guardrails on the military's use of AI and guarantee a human is in the loop in every decision to use lethal force, because the cost of getting it wrong could be devastating for civilians and the service members carrying out these missions, end quote. And of course, this is one thing about Israel's AI system. According to those reports from 972 magazine, it had a pretty significant error rate. I mean, even though they're using their AI system to intentionally target lower level Hamas guys when they were home with their families. But even on top of that, there was errors in cases of Bennett killing people and massacring whole families of people who didn't have ties to Hamas. So, and the U.S. is using these same types of targeting tools in Iran. All right, so the next one here, I just posted the Al Jazeera live updates on the Iran war, just because so much is happening here, and it's hard for us to keep track of all of it. So, you know, I mean, it's just such a mess. Rockets, drones, missiles just flying across the region. The first update that they have here is that Saudi Arabia intercepts a drone heading toward an oil field. Another tanker was hit near Iraq, and a video shows a tanker on fire. Let's see. Drone sparks minor fire at Dubai residential building. Extremely heavy airstrikes are hitting Beirut's southern suburbs. Let's see. One killed in an attack on oil tankers at Iraqi port. Iraq says Iranian boats are behind the attack on oil tankers. 4 killed as Israel attacks continue in southern Lebanon. So the region is just on fire. And it's just out of control. The next one here, Iran is exporting more oil than before the war. So Iran has been exporting more oil through the Strait of Hormuz over the past week than it was before the U.S. and Israel launched the war against the Islamic Republic on February 28th. The Wall Street Journal has reported. The report cited data from Kepler, which is a tanker tracking firm, which found that since February 28th, 7 tankers have been loaded off the coast of Iran, and at least 2 have already left the Persian Gulf. Kepler's data shows that over the past 6 days, tankers have been loaded an average of 2.1 million barrels of Iranian oil per day, higher than the 2 million barrels a day that Iran exported in February. So as a result of Iran now basically taking control of the Strait of Hormuz, they're able to actually export more oil. And the report comes as Trump has been issuing all these threats about the Strait of Hormuz. And the IRGC is maintaining that it is closed, and the only ships that can go through are ships that have permission. You could see this fire here. This was a ship from Thailand that was hit earlier in the day in the Strait of Hormuz. The crew was evacuated from the ship. They abandoned ship. And so Iran very much has control of what's going in and out of here. And they're saying, you know, Chinese and Russian ships can go through. China is the main buyer of Iranian oil. And so to these 2 ships that went through the Strait of Hormuz, I believe they are heading toward China. But it really goes to show here, the U.S. is not able to kind of reassert control over this area, not reassert or, you know, try to take control over this area. Trump suggested a few days ago that the U.S. Navy could escort tankers, but there's reporting from Reuters that the U.S. has informed the shipping industry that actually, no, we can't at this time. And I believe that's because, you know, if a U.S. Navy ship's going to go through the Strait of Hormuz, that's right there, right on the Iranian coast. They don't need any kind of advanced long-range missiles. They could use their shorter-range missiles and rockets and drones to try to hit a U.S. Navy ship that goes through there. And, of course, U.S. Navy ships, especially destroyers, have very advanced air defense systems, but I'm sure they could be overwhelmed if enough was launched at them. So the next one here, the U.S. and Middle East allies fire 1,000 Patriot PAC-3 interceptors. So the U.S. and its Middle East allies have already fired more than 1,000 PAC-3 interceptors using the U.S.-made Patriot air defense system since the U.S. and Israel launched the war with Iran on February 28th, according to a report from Bloomberg. So Lockheed Martin currently produces PAC-3 interceptors at a rate of about 600 per year. So that means that the U.S. and its allies have already fired nearly 2 years worth of production. And Lockheed has said that it will work to produce 2,000 of these interceptors per year, but it's going to take years to reach that production level. And these interceptors cost between $3 and $4 million a piece. So that means, that just the cost of these interceptors could be as high as $4 billion, potentially, likely even higher than that at this point. And we've also seen that the U.S. is using a bunch of the THAAD missiles, and they're bringing stuff in from Asia, from South Korea. So they're having some real issues when it comes to the stockpiles of the advanced interceptors and things like that.
Next, we look at this clip from Whitney, Webb, and Richard Grove.
Today's special guest is the creator of many empowering and insightful articles published at unlimitedhangout.com, including the January 23rd, 2020 article on DARPA that I found so prescient back then. More recently, she's world-renowned for her epic 2-volume series, One Nation Under Blackmail, which is becoming more transparent to the world every day. Her latest article is First Friends, How Italy's Donald Trump Introduced Naomi Campbell to Jeffrey Epstein. I'm very pleased and excited to welcome back to Grand Theft World Podcast, Whitney Webb. Whitney, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well,
I'm very happy to be back.
Yeah, thanks for making time in your schedule. I have had to watch you with Sabby Sabs recently to get a taste of what's going on out there. She's very savvy. That savvy. All right. So my first question for you, it's not going to be a curveball. It's more of a softball. Okay. I teach people marketing and entrepreneurism. I'm just curious. When did you decide to hire Ian Carroll as your director of marketing?
Oh my God. Okay. So I don't even know what to say to that. Oh my God. Okay.
Right.
So I didn't hire Ian at all. And I haven't really had any contact with him ever. But I do appreciate that he has enjoyed my book thoroughly. But I do not agree with some of the conclusions he's had from it. So I would say, for example, that I would disagree with the conclusion that my book says only Epstein was Mossad. So I argue in the book that Epstein was Israeli military intelligence, which is an important distinction because Israel can come out and say, we deny 100% that Epstein was Mossad, but if you need to get the right agency because then it's not as easy for them, right? You have to anticipate smears and attacks like that and when you're dealing with this kind of information. But beyond that, I also argue for a U.S. intelligence tie, which saying Epstein was Mossad kind of glosses over that. But more importantly, I would argue than either of those things is the fact that my book really argues, and this is why Volume 1 even exists, that what we're dealing with here is not really even state agencies. It's the power structure above them. It's a transnational oligarchy that represents the union between the people that created the intelligence agencies, mostly bankers, right, and Wall Street lawyers, with organized crime and how that continues to manifest and inform the oligarchy of today and our reality and our power structures. And so ultimately the book is very anti-duopoly. I go after both parties and, unfortunately my feeling is that Ian promoted my work, which, obviously it's nice when people promote your work, but I kind of felt like he was sheep herding people in a way towards Trump, which I don't think my book really supports, considering that it talks a lot about Trump's mentor, Roy Cohn. There's plenty in the book that isn't favorable for Trump. And I learned, of course, after the book was published, some more stuff about Trump that I hope to put in an upcoming second edition of One Nation Under Blackmail, like that he became the controlling shareholder of Resorts International, which was formerly Mary Carter Paint Company, very notorious mob-linked, CIA-linked company. That's the same year he took over, or he bought Adnan Khashoggi's yacht, which I note in the book had been used for blackmail purposes by Khashoggi, who, of course, in that time also had ties to Epstein. That Roy Cohn, Trump's mentor, basically but was intimately involved with, sexual blackmail activities at the Plaza Hotel, which after Cohn dies, Trump also buys, and there's allegations of similar-ish things, though slightly different, happening at the Plaza Hotel in that period. And of course, Trump is hanging out, as noted in the book, on Robert Maxwell's yacht in the late 1980s or so, around a host of other figures who were controversial, like the Senator John Tower, who was an accomplice to Robert Maxwell on the Promise Software scandal, Steve Ross, who created what is now, I guess, Time Warner out of an organized crime-linked, front company that was operating some sort of garage, I believe, that he took over. And I forget who else is in the picture. Oh, Mike Wallace, Chris Wallace's father, the well-known journalist of that era, all in the same picture. Of course, a few years after that, Trump is bailed out by the Rothschild banking interests. Wilbur Ross was assisting that. And Robert Maxwell's own entry into the U.S., New York City in particular, was prompted by his affiliation with the Rothschild Bank that was opened in the 1980s on Wall Street that was aiming to do mergers and acquisitions. And they picked three people. I forget the third guy, but he was a friend of Maxwell's. But the two other guys were Jimmy Goldsmith, a famous corporate raider of the era and who's related to the Rothschilds. Nice. And then Robert Maxwell. And of course, Maxwell and Goldsmith, as I note in the book, have, were in the same social circles going back to this entity called the Claremont Club, which was linked to British intelligence and organized crime and also sex blackmail activities, and included some of these figures that are not, I don't think Maxwell's portrayed in it, but I know Goldsmith and some of these other people like Tiny Rowland are in Adam Curtis's documentary series, The Mayfair Set. Which is recommended viewing if you'd like to know that these people are rather worthy of scrutiny. And it's worth pointing out, too, that, involving Epstein overlap, the earliest interaction with Epstein in this network I could find, and as I note in the book, too, was in the early 1970s, where Epstein was inexplicably appearing at Jimmy Goldsmith's mansion when he wasn't even hired by the Dalton School yet. He was still a college dropout.
Was that before or after your first volume documents that he met with the Queen of England?
No, it wasn't the Queen of England. He got involved with the royal violinist, Jacqueline Dupree, and allegedly had connections with the royal family through her, but we don't know which members necessarily. But he somehow got very close and allegedly accompanied her on piano for performances. That's alleged.
Well, he has an interest in music. But your part about Jimmy Goldsmith, that's also Adam Curtis documentary. It might also be the Mayfair Set where they talk about him pretty prolifically. So if anyone's not aware of those characters, they are quintessential because Epstein did not act alone in any of this stuff.
Yeah, but this is after his trip to England when he was a college dropout backpacking through Europe and somehow ends up musically accompanying some very well-connected musician who Dupree, by the way, ended up marrying some Israeli, I forget, but he was friends. He was an Israeli, I think, musician, might have been a dancer. I can't remember because it's been a few years. But that's apparently how Itzhak Perlman, the famous musician, got connected with Epstein, was through that relationship. And then Epstein, when he had his cabin at the Interlaken camp, was basically supposedly had built that cabin for Itzhak Perlman's use. And now Itzhak Perlman's son is like running a major, he's like a top executive at a major crypto exchange. I think it's Binance. And was previously at Gemini and is doing, not strange things, but working for companies that I think are rather suspect personally.
All right. So I got a good memory. Let's go from the top. The Ian Carroll piece. I'm sure Carol Quigley wouldn't agree with everything I say about his book, right? So I was just joking that he was your marketing director. It's just that he got out there and got in front of so many people, and Epstein became the topic, and then he's using your book as reference. And I was like, did he even read the book? When did he read the book? Where'd he come from? And he's an interesting character. So would you be up to like meeting him or talking with him or doing an interview with him in the future? Or, either way, he asks you, you ask him? Find out.
I mean, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I mean, I have a really big interview backlog.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah, it's true. I've been kind of out of the spotlight for a while. I mean, I appreciate that he promoted it, and I don't want to cast
you
shade on anybody.
You got mentioned in Joe Rogan, right? Your name was said on the show.
I just, I really hope what people take away from my work is pointing out that it's a transnational oligarchy. At the end of the day, it's, who do the state actors really work for? At the end of the day, like if Epstein was Israeli affiliated, what does that mean? Who's controlling the state of Israel?
Well, and your point was
who's controlling the United States?
Amen, which is military intelligence is the Directorate for Israel for military intelligence. So Ari Ben Manash and some other people, look, I have Epstein under that. I don't have him under Mossad. So I think I would concur with you on that, because I've never seen, like, he could be an asset adjacently, but like that's
a big
setup. That house that Wexner, like, I think Wexner was a front also, and that's why he passes it over. He's like, dude, I'm retiring. I'm gonna sit back and be off the hook. You're on the hook now. And then likely Epstein got his I think he blackmailed Donald Barr to get his start. Got a position at the Dalton School. Barr leaves. He goes and finds Ace Greenberg's kid, finds some stuff about that guy. All of a sudden, he's a guy on the Bear Stearns board of directors. He's like untouchable. So, like,
well, it's hard to know.
Maybe it increased.
It's hard to know why.
Yeah. Right.
And how it happened, but definitely it's not a normal trajectory. I think it's also possible too that Epstein was known to have been really talented in math and also music. While he was a teen and high schooler, that's how he got a full scholarship to attend the Interlochen School when he was a teenager, for example. It's very possible. So Donald Barr was also running in New York at the time that Epstein was in high school, one of these talented teen programs where they kind of identify people who are talented and sort of pluck them out of high school and put them in, special programs or whatever. And in other parts of the world, like Israel, for example, they have the Talpiot program where they pick kids out of high school that are talented in math and science to put them on a fast track to high up positions in Unit 8200 and things like that. It's very possible that something like that happened there, considering that Donald Barr historically had ties to intelligence through his service in the OSS. And at the time he hired Epstein at the Dalton School, his son, William Barr, who we can talk about again later for obvious reasons, was working for the CIA and was involved then in stonewalling the Church Committee of Congress about, the information they were looking for from the CIA. He was part of that effort to prevent the release of more information than absolutely necessary from the CIA to Congress, right? So there's possible that there was something else there and that he was helped along that way and through connections. Ace Greenberg, it was a kind of, shady guy in some ways in and of themselves. A lot of these figures that I talk about in the book connected to Epstein, for example, are part of secret societies like B'nai B'rith, which is basically the Jewish equivalent of Freemasonry. So do they have, these little clubs and they're, backroom handshakes and I'm going to hire you for this and that, that kind of stuff is known to have happened in U.S. history on more than one occasion, right? So it's possible that Epstein's rise was related to that, because also Greenberg, after Epstein was at Bear Stearns, kind of took him under his wing and helped him climb up through the bank very quickly. He left in 1980, but before then he was advising the most elite clients of Bear Stearns on tax evasion type stuff. The reason he was let go is allegedly because he was being questioned as part of this SEC investigation into insider trading involving the Bronfman family. So if Epstein were to have, the SEC was tipped off that Epstein knew something about it. Bronfman very well could have been a client of Bear Stearns at that time. But what's interesting too is that the legal counsel for Bear Stearns right around the time all of this was happening was actually Bill Casey, who just like a month or two later becomes CIA director for Reagan.
Didn't he die in a canoe accident?
No, that was William Colby.
Colby. I always get him mixed up.
No, Bill Casey died, I forget of what, but it was either right after or while the Iran-Contra hearings were going on.
Fascinating. Now, when you were talking about OSS creating companies, OSS and CIA also created AIG, which is a different Greenberg. That's Hank Greenberg, no relation to Ace Greenberg, so far as I can tell. But that's also all Anglo-American Israeli establishment as well.
Yeah, and Hank Greenberg is a longtime top funder of the CFR, right? And Epstein was also a major funder for a time of the CFR. And even after he was arrested in 07, 08, they didn't they continued to take his money for a few years after that. And, as Hillary Clinton herself said, the CFR is the mothership, right?
Yeah.
So
glad they have an outlet now in D.C. so they don't have to go to New York to get their marching orders, I think was the rest of that quote. All right. So
Yeah.
Epstein Bronfman. Bronfman is Yiddish for liquor man. Bronfmans
Sure.
are throughout your book because it's a gangster cartel type thing. It's international and, is like a corporate front for the Jewish mafia traditionally. Because your volume 1 starts in like 1942 with Operation Underworld. And this was going on prior to that because of Prohibition and Canadian smuggling into America. Can you go into the history of Bronfman and Epstein? Why would they be connected?
Yeah, so, my thesis about Epstein in general is that he was working, obviously most overtly for Leslie Wexner, but Leslie Wexner himself is enmeshed with this group that becomes rather tight-knit later of oligarchs, really, these billionaires that all happen to have organized crime connections and are very interested in ethno-philanthropy, I guess.
Are you
I would
speaking of
call
the
it.
mega group?
Yeah, sure. And which Bronfman Charles Bronfman, not Edgar Bronfman, but they obviously work closely together since they're brothers. Co-founded that with Leslie Wexner in 91, but it wasn't reported on until the Wall Street Journal covered it, I think in 1998 or 1997.
So it was before Robert Maxwell's death, but his code name was Mega. And then he dies in between those 2 points that you just talked about, doesn't he? Falls off his boat?
He dies in 1991, but I'm not sure because we don't know the month the mega group was created, but it was created sometime in 91. So it's hard to know the exact overlap. But there was a spy scandal in DC and the code name, it was a wiretap or something, I believe, of the Israeli embassy. And they were talking about getting information from someone whose code name was Mega. And so they were trying to look for like a mole in the government. And they didn't find one. And then their source, I think it was the Washington Post or some mainstream media outlet like that was reporting on it. And the Israeli they interviewed to sort of like explain away the scandal was Rafi Eitan, who had actually been Robert Maxwell's handler, and also Jonathan Pollard's handler for Israeli intelligence. But he was running a now defunct Israeli intelligence agency called DeCamp that was mainly focused on science and technology espionage. And I forget exactly when it was shut down, but basically he was the one kind of trying to explain it away. And it's very interesting you would roll out such a controversial figure to be the person to explain it away. And I think if you look at Rafi Eitan's career of espionage against the United States alone, you can't really take his claims at face value at all. So the possibility, and I think it was first raised by Israel Shamir, writing for Executive Intelligence Review in like 2002, that, the mega group and mega were linked somehow. And, positing that mega was a code word for these billionaires, which is possible considering that they have these links to organized crime, that, specifically the syndicate that teamed up with U.S. intelligence, how a lot of them have bankrolled prominent politicians. So as an example, the Crown family were members of the mega group with Wexner and the Bronfmans, and the Crowns are also linked to organized crime, but they're out of Chicago. And they built up, for example, what is now General Dynamics, the military contractor, but also along with Wexner banking interests, created the modern day JP Morgan and put Jamie Dimon in charge of it. Of course, JP Morgan later gets involved in facilitating Epstein banking criminality. But the Crowns were also one of the forces that led to Barack Obama's early political career, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating the origins of that man's career. Well, he got called treasonous this week. That's new for him.
Well, I think that's only really coming out to distract from how they're not releasing the Epstein files and how do
you noticed that too?
Oh, yes, I did. And how now Ghislaine Maxwell, who doesn't want to die like her father or like Epstein or like Jean-Luc Brunel, is being questioned by the DOJ and may testify and say certain things.
But just I think Pam Bondi, who allegedly has a consulting relationship with Susie Wiles, and Susie Wiles allegedly had some sort of like running Netanyahu's campaign. I mean, these are things I heard from Tim Dillon, so I can't take them seriously because he's a comedian. So I don't know about any of that. But this is a comedy show sometimes too.
Well, I'm not familiar with those allegations necessarily, but I think if you're Ghislaine Maxwell and a lot of people around you have been killed off, and you're in prison, I think she'll do anything to negotiate her release or a reduced sentence and say anything to further that and also not die. So we'll see what she says. But if I have to pick anything, that I think she may say, if it's not something made up, which is possible, but if she tells the truth about something, she'll just be asked ad nauseum about the Clintons and like Bill Gates and people like that, but not about anything that could be damaging for the modern day Republican Party, right? And as my work tries to make very clear, the rot is definitely 100% bipartisan. But the big giveaway here, because I saw a headline about how Hillary and Bill Clinton are going to be subpoenaed about their relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell now, as they're trying to distract away about how they're not going to release the files, which obviously have something bad for both parties in them. Otherwise, we would probably have them. But the big giveaway here about that, if the Clintons are subpoenaed and forced to testify or whatever, or if Ghislaine is asked about them, is that Republicans are not going to touch one very important aspect of the Epstein-Clinton relationship with a 10-foot pole, and that is Jeffrey Epstein's 17 visits to the Clinton White House between 1993 and 1995. They will not touch that. And there is a reason why mainstream media has worked so hard to have all the scandalous coverage of Epstein and Clinton be after Clinton left office. No focus on when he was in office. And the same is true also, I've argued in the past about Bill Gates, because they won't talk about his relationship with Epstein until he was no longer involved as chairman of Microsoft. So they want the pressure off of Microsoft. They want the pressure off of what was Epstein doing at the Clinton White House, because it's really, I would argue, ultimately boils down to what I see as sort of the second coming of Iran-Contra in the mid-90s, same network, involved with this very crazy effort that's remembered as Chinagate today, but it really has a lot to do with U.S. and Israeli intelligence, who, of course, were the bedfellows of Iran-Contra, and some of the connections they made to major Chinese weapons dealers and organized crime-like figures in Macau, and weird things there that involved a lot of military technology transfer from the U.S. to China. Israel very involved in this, and it was even, the CIA acknowledged that in the early 90s. But nothing was done to really stop anything. And they don't really want to talk about that at all. Even though it involves China, it involves Clinton. You think it would be the perfect story for Trump, but no, they won't touch it. And I write a lot about it very extensively in my book, Chinagate, if you'd like more detail on why that would be so bad for both parties.
Next is this clip from the Indie News Network.
I'm just curious to hear what people are thinking out there. If you want to hear me read this article about what's going on at Zorro Ranch. And it was written about 2 weeks ago by Descent in Bloom. I'll show you it here. I showed it during last week's show when I read the other story about Great St. James. And it just got so late because we were reading the article. We read the article from the U.S. citizen that gave his account of what had happened from the time that he was taken into custody until he was released, that we didn't get to this. But I'll go through this because, again, I think that there is quite a bit that people may have missed. I also haven't gone through all of it, so I'd like to see it for myself. But the sentence starts by saying, New Mexico wants answers about Zorro Ranch, but here's what they'll find. She went through the flight logs, phone records, victim journals, which expose how Epstein built a human trafficking operation on 10,000 acres of New Mexico desert. So she starts by telling this story, and she's great at painting visuals like this. The year is 1993. Jeffrey Epstein writes a check for $12.5 million, and Bruce King, former governor of New Mexico, hands over the keys to Zorro Ranch. What changed hands isn't just real estate, but 10,000 acres. That is 15 square miles of isolation, along with 6 underground floors. It's located 30 miles from Santa Fe, 50 miles from Los Alamos National Laboratory, and 20 miles from the Santa Fe Institute, and yet much further than that from anyone paying attention. Epstein launched his human trafficking operation here, sustaining it through connections with powerful figures. And yet, the FBI has never conducted a formal investigation of this place, not even when they were given a tip about buried bodies on the property. In fact, the federal government actively prevented the state of New Mexico from investigating, claiming it could jeopardize an ongoing federal investigation and compromise potential charges. Yes, that's former Attorney General Bill Barr. Could it be because Bill Barr, the head of the DOJ at the time, was implicated in the files as being a witness to the abuse? Maybe. This wouldn't be the first time that someone in high places protected Epstein. Lest we forget that Alex Acosta is the reason that Epstein was able to get away with this for so long. Acosta was the prosecutor responsible for a 2008 deal that let Epstein avoid a potential life sentence in exchange for a short stint in a county jail. That same Alex Acosta, who later became the labor secretary during the administration of Trump in the first time, told officials during his transition interviews for the Trump admin that he point-blank told them to leave the Epstein stuff alone because, quote, he belonged to intelligence, both national and foreign, and was, quote, above his pay grade. As of today, 6 years and 6 months and 11 days have passed since Jeffrey Epstein died, and it was only after the latest Epstein file surfaced this year did pressure build enough for the New Mexico Attorney General's office to act again. In that time, this ranch has changed hands, now owned by the family of MAGA Republican Don Huffines, who was running for Congress. His team says construction of a Christian retreat has begun, bringing excavation, demolition, and the destruction of whatever was left behind. And yes, this is more significant than some people may realize. The ranch was the epicenter of Epstein's operations, far more than people realize. Little St. James was the headline, but this was the foundation. The island became the thing people argue over. The ranch, where the architecture of it all took shape, stayed in the shadows for the most part, until now, for good reason. She spent the last few weeks investigating every available source she could find. Flight logs, the Epstein files, court records, and victims' testimony, and this is what she was able to put together. Here's the significance of Zorro Ranch. On the map, Zorro Ranch was not in the middle of nowhere. It was in the middle of a very specific somewhere. Santa Fe's political class, Los Alamos' national security and nuclear weapon network, and the Santa Fe Institute's world of complex systems research that treats networks, evolution, and information as things that you can model and manipulate. The Santa Fe Institute is a scientific think tank built by scientists from Los Alamos, the lab that created the atomic bomb. In 1984, George Cowan and Nobel Prize winner Murray Gell-Mann founded it as a boundary-breaking research center. By the early 1990s, Jeffrey Epstein had donated at least $275,000 after Ghislaine Maxwell introduced him to Gell-Mann, a connection that ran through her father's foundation that had already funded a $300,000 professorship there. That's weird. Epstein placed his ranch just 23 miles from the Institute and 50 miles from Los Alamos, a location he later admitted was intentional. Gelman even personally thanked Epstein for financial support in his 1994 book, The Quark and the Jaguar. All right, so here's Zorro Ranch down at the bottom of the map. All right, there's the Santa Fe Institute. There in this blue dot over here is the Los Alamos Lab and National Security Science Center. Right? Close enough to brush shoulders with those he wanted to influence, and far enough to operate without any other witnesses. But there's a reason beyond proximity to power that kept Epstein interested in the sciences, and that's exactly what his plan was for the ranch. And again, Whitney Webb documented a lot of this stuff years ago as well. This is not like the first time this has ever been uncovered, but look, the center's researching this stuff because she's just learning about all this stuff for the first time. So it's new to her. The flight logs and call records for New Mexico make clear that human trafficking was taking place there. People were flown into the remote ranch and didn't always leave on the same plane. Names like Nadia and labels such as Female 1 appear on arrival records, but the handlers' records show they departed without them. That kind of separation is consistent with how trafficking operations move people. Research shows that traffickers isolate victims by moving them to new locations where they're alone and dependent on the trafficker, a form of psychological manipulation and a control tactic that matches the pattern of people being dropped off at the isolated ranch. During the busiest years, as passengers were repeatedly listed as Female 1 or Male 1 with no real names attached. That's a little weird. The anonymity was built into the official logs. And I guess they were able to do that because they were taking private planes because they had the Lolita Express. The compound itself was built for control. Between 1994 and 1999, Epstein transformed the property into a 33,339 square foot hacienda-style mansion with its own 4,400-foot private airstrip, a hangar, a helipad, surveillance cameras at every gate, and hidden cameras installed in Kleenex boxes purchased from a spy shop. And again, she's got the receipts to link to this from The Independent. Beneath the main residence sat a confirmed underground floor of roughly 8,000 square feet, containing massage rooms, jacuzzi rooms, and mechanical rooms that housed the surveillance network's servers and recording equipment, all underground. Think about the kind of money it took to build a compound like this. Justice Department emails from 2017 reference image files suggesting up to 6 underground levels accessed by a subcellar elevator. A reverse osmosis water system permitted to discharge over 10,000 gallons per day serviced the compound. What did they need to produce 10,000 gallons of water a day for? This is infrastructure that researchers have questioned whether the surface buildings alone could justify. This wasn't a home, it was an operation. Victim accounts match the flight data. Annie Farmer was flown to the ranch at 16 in 1996 and later said that she was sexually abused there. Virginia Giuffre formerly reports, she's now deceased. She formerly reports on 2 recorded flight logs leaving Santa Fe with known Epstein associates aligning with her testimony regarding the ranch. There's a couple of pictures of her at the ranch from the Epstein files. The trafficking at Zorro Ranch was not the end goal, but instead it was the mechanism. The end goal was something Epstein talked about openly. The scientists, at dinner parties, at conferences he hosted. He wanted to use the ranch as a human breeding facility. Quote, girls' journals recovered in the files describe Ghislaine Maxwell, who appeared on 37% of all flights to New Mexico, taking their babies. It includes photos of sonograms and heartbreaking pleas to keep their babies. One girl describes being repeatedly impregnated by Epstein, starting at age 16, with babies taken away shortly after birth. She calls herself a quote-unquote human incubator. She talks about how Ghislaine Maxwell was present during at least one birth and would tell her to close her eyes so she wouldn't even see the baby. She documents at least one miscarriage caused by pregnancies too close together, multiple live births where babies were immediately taken, and severe psychological trauma and disassociation. She wrote it in the only way she could, in her journals, in code, with magazine clips. She is gone and she won't be coming back, with an ultrasound photo. There's her clipping out a poem from January 28, 1963, called Child, that says, my heart belonged to her. Think about what it means to be 14 years old. You're in 8th or 9th grade. You still have a curfew. You might have just started wearing makeup. Your biggest worry should be a math test or whether someone likes you back. You are, in every meaningful sense, still a child. One navigating the bewildering early stages of figuring out who you even are. Now imagine a man with a private jet tells you or tells someone in your life that he wants to help with your education, that he's a philanthropist, that he has connections. Maybe your family doesn't have much money. Maybe you've been told that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You're flown to a remote ranch in New Mexico that's thousands of acres of desert, 30 miles from the nearest town. There's a private airstrip. Surveillance cameras everywhere. The only way in or out is through a gate controlled by ranch staff. There's no one to call. There's nowhere to go. The girls who survived this carry it in their bodies and their minds for the rest of their lives. The testimony that they've given in courtrooms, on the record, and some even under their own names, is among the bravest speech any human being can offer. They walked into systems that had failed them at every turn and then said, "This happened to me anyway." Here's more of these magazine clippings posted from the files. He wanted young girls, a teen, blonde beauty. She wanted her childhood back. So here's her analysis of how Zorro Ranch worked as a trafficking hub. At the top were Epstein and Maxwell. Maxwell again appeared on 37% of all flights to New Mexico and was present on nearly every trip through 2001. Beneath her was Emmy Taylor, a British actress who has sued victims, listed as Ghislaine's assistant, who flew to the ranch 33 times. Again, that 33 number, sometimes even without Maxwell. When Maxwell stepped back after 2001, Sarah Kellen moved into her role without any break in operations, handling scheduling and logistics for the next several years. On the ground, a woman named Sabrina Zasko coordinated arrivals. Her subpoenaed phone records show call activity rising every time a flight was inbound, moving between Albuquerque and Santa Fe in a steady, repeated pattern. Ranch manager Bryce Gordon and his wife ran the property day to day. In 2013, Bryce was coordinating appointments directly with Epstein. In February 2007, the FBI interviewed Bryce Gordon and his wife. They told agents that Epstein typically spent several weeks there in summer with his assistant, bodyguard, personal trainer, and sometimes his masseuses, who were flown in via the private airstrip. Then someone called the staff and told them they were no longer allowed to speak with the FBI. The interview was immediately terminated. The flight logs show how it worked. Over 10 years, 105 documented flights moved people in and out of New Mexico in what investigators call passenger laddering, meaning the people who flew in were often not the same people who flew out. The flights followed a tight, repetitive triangle: Teterboro, New Jersey, Van Nuys, California, and Albuquerque and Santa Fe, New Mexico. Teterboro sits just outside New York City, close enough for a quiet drive into Manhattan, yet far enough removed from the bustle of major commercial airports to avoid unwanted attention.
Next, we take a look at this clip with Ryan, Cristian, and Charlie Robinson.
Control exactly what people think, and that is our job.
What the hell is happening? What the hell is happening?
Our homeland.
Making things happen. The world is our stage. What the hell is happening? 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 Propaganda
The best on the planet.
We're going to develop this. It's already happening. What the hell? We could step up the pressure. It's happening. Happening. It's already happened. The madness of the news cycle. Spinning the wheel of chaos. What the hell is happening?
Oh, that's in the background. Well, welcome to another episode of What the Hell is Happening. Always a great time to talk about what the hell is going on with all the chaos in the world today. Oh, you know what? I forgot we have our new intro. I wanted to play this clip right out of the gate since this is something interestingly with what we start. We ended up last time saying something very interesting that I'm sure many of you are already thinking about since Charlie's done a couple of interviews in the fact, but here's how we ended last, when was this? End of January, right? I believe. Here's the end of the interview.
Good to see you, Ryan. I'll check in. Well, I'll have plenty to report back after after Mexico, I'm sure.
Hopefully there's no weird events like last time, weather events or whatever else. I hope you stay safe out there.
Well, they always like to throw a little curveball our way, but we're resourceful. We always find a way to figure it out.
It is pretty crazy, right? Charlie, how are you?
Well, in this case, to be fair, this wasn't necessarily directed at the people of Anarchapulco. And it was happening elsewhere, and it happened a couple days after the event. Actually, it happened on the Sunday following the event ending on Friday. I say event ending. There were events going on Saturday and Sunday at the convention center as well, but it was dollar vigilante related. So I had a fantastic week leading up to that, and I got in and out without any sort of problems. I left on the Saturday before just because I was scheduled to, and everything kicked off the day after. But in terms of the pyrotechnics that happened, it was funny because we had some of the greatest investigative journalists around in the area. So as soon as it kicked off on Sunday morning, Patrick Henningsen from 21st Century Wire is there. Josh Sigurdson from World Alternative Media lives there. He just came out of his house and it was going on. Dan Dix from Press for Truth, they were down there. So they just grabbed their gear and went out in different directions and filmed what was happening. And what was happening was actually a bit of a show. Really, ultimately, that's what it was. Now, scary, and I'm not trying to be dismissive of anybody who was caught in that, but what didn't happen was them pulling people off the bus, lining them up and shooting them all. That didn't happen. And what didn't happen were cab drivers getting dragged out and shot. And in the cab, what did happen was the cabs were lit on fire. The buses were pulled over. The people were taken off, put up, outside, and then the bus were lit on fire. The OXXO convenience stores, the equivalent of like a 7-Eleven in Mexico, they were lit on fire. But they all three of those components have relationships with the cartel. They operate as buses and taxis and convenience stores at the behest of or with the express written approval of the cartels and Major League Baseball. They're allowed to operate. And if the cartels decide that it's time to do a little show of force, then maybe your convenience stores and your cabs and your buses get burned down. But that's the cost of doing business. But what didn't happen was they didn't destroy the tourism industry by going into the hotels and taking people out in the lobbies and doing all the things that they could have done. So in some respects, it was a bit of terrorism theater, which is good. I'm glad. I as opposed to it being the real thing. But when it's happening, you don't know how long it's going to go. And the rumors were they're going to the hotels. They're going to start doing that. So it was an interesting time to be paying attention to, that sort of street theater. I wasn't there. I'm glad I wasn't there. Not that I want to be there for it, but I knew it. 24 people who were still there having to deal with that sort of situation and the chaos that comes with it. So I guess it's a reminder to everybody, everything's normal until it's not.
Right.
And when the normality ends and you are thrust into chaos, you have to become an expert on your situation immediately. And that is tough to do, especially if you're in a foreign land. But I think it was probably ultimately maybe a good thing for anybody who sort of experienced that. It's a dress rehearsal for what can happen when the lights go off or the power goes off or chaos sparks, because it doesn't take too long for people to go from normal to looting. If they think that they're going to be out of food in a couple of days, they'll make some decisions that they wouldn't normally do. So it's just another reminder about how fragile things can be and how normal is always kind of in air quotes, and that is subject to change pretty much on a moment's notice.
And, those out there that would be driven to loot, first of all, people in positions like that, if desperate, anybody I think could get to that position, but it shows you an early position like that, or the time, that's somebody who wasn't prepared. That's a lesson for this, right? Like, you wouldn't need to be rushing out to loot for things you might need, if not because of what's coming tomorrow or what they said might happen, but just because you're always prepared, because you have water and resources and things you have, like the important thing to think about. But when you say about theater, how and to what end, and how do you read this whole thing? So like, what in your mind, what actually went down, and comparing to both the mainstream alternative and mainstream coverage of what they claimed happened, what's your insight on that and how you see it going down? And if it was theater, to what end, by whom, how do you see that?
So if you're the cartel and your guy gets whacked, you have to retaliate. But you have to be careful in how that retaliation is framed, because there's ways in which you can let the world know that you're angry and that you're not going to stand for this, which is, I think, what they did. And then there's other ways in which you can burn your bridge after you've crossed it and take the, and really sort of fight. If the cartels wanted to fight with the Mexican government and make things untenable for the government, they would destroy the tourism industry. And they could have done that day. That would have been, there's 6.5 million people that come through just Puerto Vallarta every year. So even if it was just limited to Puerto Vallarta, which it wasn't, it was happening elsewhere, but that would be enough to throw in, just an economic catastrophe. So we've got that going on. And so when I say theater, I mean, if the cartel doesn't respond, that's a sign of weakness on their part, right? So they do have to respond in a way that the cartel recognizes: violence, fires, explosions. And to be fair, the cars exploding, they're exploding because their tires are blowing out, right? It's not like they were rigged with C4 and they were, they were lit on fire. They were made to catch on fire, but they weren't rigged with like detonators and things like that.
To the point being that they're doing this to demonstrate a response, but knowing that they don't want to do it to where it will cause some kind of larger spin out, but sort of just like pushing back slightly. So do you think that is, so you see it as genuinely that the Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, took this action unilaterally because of whatever reasoning was, and the cartel just responded? You don't see any influence?
Don't know if it was unilateral. I don't know if they're
like, how do you see this playing in the larger sphere? Because a lot of the conversation, and this is not, for those that are new to this conversation, this is not some kind of, let's just find a way to tie in the elements, like Israel, the United States. There's a wildly clear documented track record of the US and Israel training cartel members, as I know, going back to, even before, but the most notorious in regard to it slipped my mind all of a sudden. They made Netflix documentaries about him. The cartel, the previous
El Chapo.
No. God, it's so crazy to me. The one of the most famous, the Netflix did a whole thing about him. It doesn't matter. I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. The one of the most famous, Sinaloa cartel, I believe, and the one, and what's his name? Not Chapo, but the one that was before that. But anyway, I swear it's so crazy that somebody in the chat will probably say it. My point is that there's documented, reports or interviews or, where they're training them. I mean, even Israeli media reported on Israel getting caught doing that. And so the conversation becomes, is this about some kind of a different, like right now, I think a lot of people are beginning to recognize that there's a different way the world actually works. That's a global thing, right? And that's to this local point about whether or not there's involvement with the cartels, like the DEA getting caught in 2025, literally helping them launder their money, about whether this was something that was Scheinenbaum, like maybe stopping that. And this was a response to try to push back on some kind of affecting, and this isn't even unique to US and Israel, but like a global network of control. Do you see anything that goes that direction, or how else do you see that? That's kind of what I was getting at, like the bigger.
My mind immediately went to Eric Holder and Fast and the Furious.
Pablo Escobar. Thank you, Gabe. I can't believe I didn't remember his name.
Yeah. So immediately I started thinking of Fast and Furious, right? So running guns into Mexico. So again, it's like, oh, the cartels are setting off these bombs. They're committing violence. It's like, yeah, with the weapons that we sent them. Okay. And then I started to think, well, also Israel is sending weapons as well, and they're doing training. So what is that? What's that? So what it isn't, I think what it isn't is it isn't the government versus the cartel. I don't think it's that.
Right.
I think the government
time ago.
I think the government and the cartel have a mutually parasitic relationship, right? They need each other. Or maybe the government doesn't need the cartel, but the cartel is there and they have to deal with it. They can, and so I don't see them as maybe they are sworn enemies, but I don't see that as preventing them from working with each other when they need to. So I'm always a bit suspicious about this. I have, maybe you can help me work this out, because we've got Claudia Sheinbaum, president of Mexico, Jewish, yet her policies seem to be very supportive of Palestinians, which has thrown me for a loop. I don't know what to make of that.
Well, I think that's the point about whether it's, it's not just being Jewish is not necessarily the tie. It's the Zionist element of the Jewish or Christian side of it. So I think that's, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Part we should go into. Go ahead.
My assumption is she wouldn't be the president of Mexico if she was just Jewish. She'd have to be Jewish and Zionist. To me, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me,
you're right though. It's an important factor to get into, because I do think that's whether Jewish or Zionist independently, or just Jewish or just Zionist, that there's elements of manipulation from the outside. Yeah. And I think that does matter. Like that's the people out there that want to argue that the Zionist discussion or Israel is devoid of a Jewish element are lying as well, right? Yes. So I think it's always important to highlight that. But please continue your point.
Yeah. So I wondered about this, since it didn't break off into a continued escalation of violence, that it felt kind of like pro wrestling, and look, you can get hurt for real when you're fake wrestling. So it's not that, oh, all of this is fake. No, it's real, but it's controlled aggression. It's controlled bombs. And we see this a lot in war too. Like, oh, they launched a drone strike against Iran and then Iran has to retaliate. They have to retaliate, but maybe they retaliate by saying, we're going to send a missile tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. and hit this place right here. Make sure everybody's out.
Don't you agree that's what happened last time? Like, I feel like there was inside reports that's ultimately what happened, but then Israel just took advantage of it after the agreed kind of back and forth. That's what it looked like.
What a surprise. Right? What a surprise. So yeah, I am always looking for whatever is under the surface, right? The obvious is the cartels versus the government. But we know that there's more than that. So I guess I'm wondering how this plays into Israel's I don't know if they've come out and publicly stated this, but for those of us who have been paying attention, there has been a pivot to South America by the Israelis. They're we're starting to hear about Patagonia, and we're obviously with Argentina and Malay, and Venezuela gets Maduro removed, and then they normalize relationships with Israel immediately and start selling their oil to Israel immediately. And so you say, okay, so Israel is definitely looking like Operation Condor 2. I don't know. They've got their eyes set on South America and I would say Central America as well. So is this just the beginning of sort of the Pax Judaica in the Western Hemisphere.
Well, I think that's exactly what I think we have to always remember is it's not one or the other. I mean, I think we should and have in the past discussed which one might be more guiding the other between the U.S. and Israel. That's an important conversation because who's to say? I think I have my opinion. But I think, both of these agendas are the same today, right? So it's clear that the U.S. has had this Monroe Doctrine, sort of our hemisphere perspective for a really long time, right? And clearly that's kind of ebbed and flowed. I mean, I think it's never really stopped, but the narratives have changed. Today, it's just gone, hey, like it's crazy how on the I think what Israel's driving through this administration is to make all of this happen. I think Netanyahu personally feels that his window is closing on when he can effectively make all this happen. And so his wet dream of Iran is literally taking place. And I think his calculus is, well, we have to bring Lebanon immediately involved because otherwise we might get this, but then Lebanon will still be there. And I think Netanyahu feels that he might be losing power soon. And that's what Israel's saying. And so I think all of this is sort of mashing this into one large agenda. I think it has to do with the AI direction, the control grid, right? Rare earth minerals, Venezuela, lithium, gold and oil as well. And I think that's what this is. And so I think you're right, though. But I think the Israel sort of focusing might just be that all of this is their common agenda at this point.
Next, we take a look at this clip with Rachel Blevins and Robert Inlakesh.
Join me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on the show. Now, I want to get your take on the latest here, as I know that the U.S. and Israel have launched a full-scale war on Iran. And in less than 1 week, the timeline has gone from 4 days to 4 weeks to now 100 days, with reports that the Pentagon is desperately scrambling to gather everything from military intelligence officers to air defense interceptors. Are you surprised that the U.S. embarked on this attack on Iran when the warnings were all around that if they did this, it was going to lead to a prolonged war? And that's exactly what we're seeing.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised that they have launched the war. However, what I am surprised at is how poorly they're doing, to be honest with you. All of the military analysts and experts that I was speaking to prior to the war being launched were essentially all telling me the same thing, that during the first week, or some would say 3 to 4 days, the Americans and the Israelis were going to have the upper hand, and that the Iranians would be on the back foot. It would be difficult for them to fire off significant bursts of ballistic missiles in response, and it was going to be bad news for Iran. It was anticipated that Iran would lose its navy. It was anticipated that all of its aircraft were going to be destroyed, or at least they were going to be rendered non-existent. Their navy and their air force. Also, it was reported. It was recorded that they were going to lose, and everyone thought this was just a given fact, that they were going to lose their air defense systems. The Iranians still have their air defense systems intact to a certain extent. We don't know how badly they've been damaged, but we know they're still shooting out of the sky Israeli and American drones every single day. Their air force are still in the skies. Not only is the Iranian Air Force still in existence, the Iranian Air Force in the first few days of the war actually carried out airstrikes on U.S. military facilities. And these are old fighter jets. I mean, the mere fact that they even had, the courage to use those jets to carry out those missions in of itself is shocking. And then within basically around 2 hours of the initial strikes coming in, the Iranians had already started firing bursts of ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv, at all of the U.S. military bases in the Persian Gulf, at Iraq, later at Jordan, and they were hitting their targets, many of them. And then now, of course, the Iranians have had to use smaller waves of missiles. They have to be careful so that they don't make it very obvious where they're launching from, and they don't get taken out. And of course, it's inevitable that they will get taken out to some extent. But at the same time, it's been it's left me speechless how the Iranians have taken the initiative, how strong the Iranians have been. I was prepared that for the first week, the Iranians were going to be on the back foot. That is not what we've seen. We've seen that the Iranians are pounding the opposition. They're sending their suicide drones into sensitive military facilities. They're killing U.S. soldiers. They're evidently killing Israeli soldiers. Hezbollah in Lebanon, something that actually I've been writing about for many months, and some people jumped on my case and said that Hezbollah is no longer in existence and it was weak. And I was arguing the case that the weapons were still coming through the Syrian border and that Hezbollah was not defeated in any way. But Hezbollah has now entered the conflict, and Hezbollah is firing hundreds upon hundreds of rockets and missiles, countless drones into Israeli military sites and along the Lebanese border. It is engaging the Israeli military with ambushes and anti-tank guided munitions, destroying Israeli tanks, armored personnel carriers, and troop gatherings. This has been just chaos for the Israelis and the Americans, shockingly so. And I think that the reason why this war was not launched before by any other presidency, any other administration, was because this is the worst case scenario for them, and it's not looking good. It's not looking good at all.
Oh, absolutely. When you've got reports about the U.S. having to possibly move its THAAD systems from South Korea to the Middle East, it just serves as a reminder that the U.S. empire can only do so much. And I know exactly like you were saying, when it comes to Iran, a lot of people will be quick to say, oh, Iran is a paper tiger, right? They warn and then they don't really follow through on it. But they actually have followed through on their warnings with every retaliation. It has increased every single time. And this time they didn't wait. They didn't wait around for days or weeks. No, it was within hours, within about 30 minutes, I believe, that they started their retaliation. They did exactly what they said they would do, targeting not only Israel, but also over a dozen U.S. military bases and sites in the region, which is what they warned. And I did think it was notable because I know there's some people out there that will say, oh, well, they aren't hitting this target or that target, but it's like they are wearing down U.S. and its vassal states and their air defenses, and they have a finite supply of interceptors. Also, at the same time, their capabilities are hitting everything from Washington's $1 billion radar system at its airbase in Qatar to multiple THAAD systems, of which the U.S. only has 11 in the world. So how do you view Iran's strategy here to not just target Israel, but to really hit this wide range of targets and show what they're capable of across the region?
Well, I believe that the Americans fell into a number of traps, and they did the worst possible thing that they could have done in the opening round of strikes. The number one, and perhaps the most important point to take away here, is that they killed Ayatollah Khamenei. He was in his home. He didn't leave. He was in a very obvious, publicly known space, and they killed him there. And you have to ask yourself the question, and obviously the U.S. military or the political leadership that ordered it didn't ask themselves this key question: why was he still there in such an obvious place? Because he had evidently accepted at 86 years of age that he was okay to die, that strike could come at any moment, but he knew that his nation was prepared for it. And so when that strike came down, that opened Pandora's box, not just because of the fact that Iran was going to respond in the way that it has, but because the entire region was going to explode, and that this would trigger a whole series of events throughout the region, which has spanned from an uprising in Bahrain to the Iraqi groups within the Hashd al-Sha'bi and the Awliya ad-Dam, which is another resistance group, which more recently, I suppose, started advertising itself. It's been around since, I think, 2020 officially. Hezbollah, Ansarullah in Yemen, and beyond. All of them have become engaged in this conflict. And also, here's another thing, and this is not to do with the military side only. Killing Khamenei and opening this war in the minds of many, perhaps in the Iranian leadership, could have been the beginning of a sort of rebirth of the Islamic Republic of Iran. What I mean by that is, in its 47 years of existence, there's been a number of different key events which have been transformative and have essentially ensured the survival of the project in the country. One of them was the 8-year war between Iraq and Iran. And the United States pushed Saddam Hussein to engage in that war of aggression against Iran, using chemical weapons and, of course, killing civilians. And, anywhere between 500,000 to over 1 million, some people say, Iranians were killed in this war. A lot of people died fighting. But that war ended up being the glue that kept the Islamic Republic so strong. This is what happens in war. Like in Western countries, we have the Second World War, which is used as sort of this, background story as to why we're so great and, why our system is so wonderful because we beat the Nazis and, World War II and all of the events that happened. For Iran, the Iran-Iraq war was one of those moments. I believe that what has happened is, with the death of Khamenei, and the way that the Iranians dealt with this was very intelligent. They didn't announce it for a day. They retaliated first, demonstrated to their population that they can deal with this situation, that they can take on the world's #1 military superpower without Khamenei there. And then after that, now they have this massive war, which is exposed to their own population why, for all these years, their slogan has been death to America, death to Israel, develop our ballistic missile systems, develop our drones, ensure that we're supporting our allies in the region. Why that is true, why they need to support that in order to stay sovereign and to protect themselves. Because the United States, the other big thing that they did, which was a major mistake, was they bombed a girls' school in Iran, killing at least 165 little girls. And according to Middle East Eye, their sources say anyway that reports on the ground indicate it was a double tap strike, that they struck the school twice. So what they did there with the massacre of those schoolgirls demonstrated to the Iranian nation why their policies have been the way they have been. So this can almost be a moment for Iran that sort of reinforces the ideas and the principles of the Islamic Revolution. And now they've taken away the one man who had issued a fatwa, a religious ruling, against developing a nuclear weapon. So this is the worst case scenario for the Americans and the Israelis. Again, the Iranian air defenses are still there. They still have naval assets. They still have an air force. Their military is extremely powerful. Their allies are overperforming, especially Hezbollah, from what everybody expected them to do in Lebanon. Hezbollah have outperformed the expectations. And now the one man that was in the way of Iran getting a nuclear weapon has been ruthlessly murdered by the Americans, who are claiming that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. And then they're wanting to strike again the religious council, a meeting of the religious council to elect the next leader. And of course, the Iranian side said that the Americans ended up striking an empty building and didn't kill anyone, but that is nonetheless a message. And so at this point, Iran is dictating what's happening here. I mean, look, the American military, of course, is extremely powerful. We can't undermine that. I don't think we should underestimate the power of the U.S. military. But when you see Pete Hegseth up there at the podium talking about all the wonderful achievements that the U.S. has scored here, this is cope. This is pure cope. It's cope. It's weak cope in the same way as when the United Arab Emirates puts, an official in military fatigues and gets them to come on television and point with a stick at a graph of and graphics of all the missiles that they've shot down, which are more missiles than were even fired at the country. Ridiculous things like this. It's all at this point cope from the Israeli and the American side, and that's why as well, partially why the Israelis are blocking their own citizens from filming the damage in Tel Aviv, in occupied Al-Quds, in the north of the country, in Bir Saba, all over, where these missiles are actually impacting. The Israeli media will report a serious security incident. And in the Hebrew media, when that report comes through, that means soldiers have been killed and injured in action. And they'll report, time and time again throughout the day that Hezbollah along the northern border, that there's been a serious security incident. And then we just hear nothing about all of the casualties. 2 tanks were just destroyed, completely destroyed, but apparently the crews, there's no news on the crews. There's no there's no injuries, or there's no deaths, or if there are injuries, they're moderate or light, despite the fact that an entire tank was destroyed. I don't know how that works, but there's an enormous amount of censorship going on, and that's because, quite frankly, they're losing.
Next, we take a look at this clip from Cognitive Dissidents with her Voye Morik, Monica Perez, and Parallel Mike.
Hello everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Cognitive Dissidents. I am Parallel Mike of Parallel Systems.
This is Monica Perez of The Monica Perez Show.
And Corbett from Geopolitics and Empire.
Well, it's great to see you both. It's been 2 weeks and the world is now at war, apparently. So I think we've got a lot to speak about on the Iran subject. I thought maybe we could start, Hervoy, with some of your videos, because I know you've usually got something to kick us off. So I'll hand it over to you, and then we can start commenting on some of these narratives, because there's lots of them relating to this one topic.
Oh, you mean on the Iran stuff? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let me just get this.
Because the other thing, this would have been the biggest news, was what happened in Mexico in Hervoy's backyard less than 2 weeks ago. And sadly, worse has happened since then. But we do have to get to that Mexico conversation.
Yeah, just on the Iran stuff. I don't have any. Some of the stuff that I have here is I found interesting. Lockheed Martin, war is a racket. Lockheed Martin says we've agreed to quadruple munitions production, and it's like, boy, bullets and bombs are the big money. But some of the other important stuff here, what was it? Hegseth. So I haven't found the actual source, but this is a clip where Hegseth is actually appearing to say he threatens the entire Iranian population.
The only ones that need to be worried right now are Iranians that think they're going to live. The only ones that
think they're going to live. Like, what is that? And Pahlavi, I call him the imperial marionette, the Shah's son. This is Ajax 2.0. He has accepted his role as Iran's transitional leader. Here's I queued up the clip.
The Iranian people have called on me to lead the transition.
Have they really? Wow.
After the regime is gone, I have accepted that responsibility. Part of their great mandate to me is to return our nation and our foreign relations to normalcy. I will do exactly that. My commitment is to ensure the transition is orderly.
So we get the idea, blah, blah, blah there. And then this clip I just got this morning, which is pretty wild. At least they're being honest. The oil, right?
This is a long-term gain, because what we want to do is get such massive oil reserves in Iran out of the hands of terrorists. Mm-hmm. And so what we're going to experience here in the short term is highly outweighed of the long-term benefit, because ultimately we're not going to have to worry about these issues in the Strait of Hormuz, because we're going to get all of the oil out of the hands of terrorists.
That's pretty wild, and I think that's it for now. And there are a few other talking points, but I'm just going to add. We've been talking about this for months, haven't we? Maybe even a year on cognitive dissidence, and it's finally happening. And for my biggest takeaway is, I think it's a number of issues. Of course, it's oil. Of course, it's regime change, but it's to bring in technocracy, right? To like we've seen in Venezuela and Gaza and Ukraine. We're upgrading the analog systems of Windows XP to Windows 12 now. Soon we're going to have Windows 12. And even Council on Foreign Relations put out an article. One of our listeners sent it to me saying that we need to bring in Iranian technocrats for this new Iranian government. And then once that happens, you're going to have the Middle Eastern technate. So, and I'll just add one more thing. I had two of my past podcast guests message me, 3, but some of the things they said, one of them says, we're watching the unfolding of the Middle Eastern technate before our eyes. Another said that he's learned a lot from me, that he used to think there was more genuine conflict between the nations, but now he's come around to seeing that most of these actors are sort of on the same page when it comes to globalism. And one more past podcast guest said that it feels like February 2020, right, with COVID, right before the tomato hit the fan. And I think he's on point. This is like March 2026, and I think this is the sequel to COVID, which is going to be used to take away our liberties and implement the digitalization agenda. So.
Yeah, there's loads that we can speak about. The thing you just said, though, I think is really interesting because we've got all the kind of same ingredients that we had going into 2020. We've got a financial crisis. There's lots of issues behind the scenes, which we'll discuss, but private credit is the one that most people are pointing to. We've got a stock market bubble. But the interesting part about the oil shock that I was thinking is that if they have oil spike over $100 a barrel, firstly, they can blame the global recession or depression on that. They'll say, oh, it was the oil shock, it was the Iranians. And then the other thing is we're going to have a situation where we might have energy lockdowns because nobody's going to be able to go anywhere. If there's no inventory at the fuel pumps, if planes are grounded, which has already started to happen, and people can't fly, and then they say, oh, we're going to have to ration energy, which actually happened in the 1970s. So they've already done all of this. And then all of a sudden, you've got a situation that's quite similar to COVID, where nobody is able to do much. And the other thing I would say to that is if we have an event that's, let's say, a cyber attack, and they blame that on Iran, and there's a banking crisis, well, now you've got everybody demanding some kind of response. And that would be technocracy. I mean, the tether and the stable coins, all of that's still to come. But if we do have a crisis that affects the liquidity of the everyday man and woman, then yeah, COVID bailouts and stimmy checks and debt grace repayments and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think it's the same. That's what I was saying in my show just last night. I think it's going to be COVID Mark II. It's going to have a lot of the same features, and we're just waiting for kind of like I know we've got the war narrative, but there's going to be an event at some point, I think. I get the feeling there's going to be a big event that kind of brings it all together and gets the everyday man and woman on board. Because right now, most people don't care about this Iranian war. They don't want to go to war. They've got no interest in it. And the only people that really are on board with it would be the Christian evangelicals who think it's end times. And we can maybe talk about that too. But Monica, let me hand it over to you.
Yeah, I've got a few things there, both from reacting to what her boy is saying and what you're saying, Mike. The AI bubble, which, I mean, I think we've also talked about this, kind of front ran when people were still, nobody even said the words AI bubble. We're like, wait a second, this looks like a bubble. If you look back at the .com bubble, that was bursting, and then you got 9/11. So you could have that. I agree that I feel like the cyber lockdown is the 2.0 kind of, like COVID had the actual physical lockdown. The reason I think that is this, I couldn't buy something on Amazon. And I was like, well, whatever, it's just my Wi-Fi or whatever. And then a friend of mine is like, why is Amazon not working? And the news was that they had servers hit in the Middle East, which should not really affect us, I don't think. And I'm thinking, well, they're setting us up for a cyber attack and thinking about how you would live without that. That's a little bit in contrast with the lockdown stuff where they were trying to get you online. So I don't know what that back and forth is, but I do think a cyber attack is likely. And I also think a real false flag is what it would take to get even the MAGA crowd, who's kind of doesn't know what to do with this war president when they didn't really think they were voting for that, although they should have known because we told them. But they could have a false flag, and I'm sure they're going to, but they could do something more serious like we've seen, just because the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania that we all bonded on as being fake, just because an attempt is an inside job doesn't mean nobody dies. So I worry a little bit about Trump because I think they just gave him his marching orders. I can tell you why I think that, but they just gave him his marching orders. They didn't have to tell him what they really knew about the risks of retaliation, how long the war would be. That just his was not to wonder why. His is just to do or die, and maybe do and die.
And just to add to that, we're seeing again the signals being put out there, and I think for us that have real good discernment, we're able to form these patterns and accurately extrapolate, predict the future. And again, one of my guests said, messaging me, and I think he's on point, what we saw in Mexico, which I did a podcast on. It was Operation Gladio, a Mexican division, and that I think is the shape of things to come. It's almost like they were what happened in Guadalajara here, burning 300 cars, and they didn't really target civilians, but it was almost like that was what we may see in the US. And it's wild to see Alex Jones. Like, again, I keep an eye on him, and the other day his newsletter, and it's like so mainstream media. He's got some pretty lady with big boobs in the studio with him, and he's like, I predicted the Iranian sleeper cells. So the sleeper cells are going to be activated in the US. And it's like, guys, really? Come on, that's false flag. And so the guy who, made his mark on being the anti-false flag guy is now literally the tip of the spear, as he used to say, leading the false flag operation. So they've seeded that narrative of Iranian sleeper cells. And as you say, Monica, I would not be surprised if we begin to see these Iranian sleeper cell false flag operations across the United States.
Next, we have this clip from New World Next Week with James Corbett and James Evan Pilato.
Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I'm James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. Surely part of the pleasure is that sense of connection with the content creator. We have got that fascinating story, plus Fukushima and COVID anniversaries. But first, nations worldwide move to conserve fuel as Strait of Hormuz closure threatens global economy. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif announced on 9 March sweeping austerity measures to curb domestic fuel consumption after oil prices briefly reached $120 a barrel due to the disruptions caused by the U.S.-Israel war on Iran. The entire region is currently in a state of war. Keeping this reality in mind, the government took difficult decisions for the country's economy, Sharif said in his address. He said oil prices are already above $100 a barrel and could rise further, forcing Islamabad to conserve reserves and take quick measures to reduce the need for fuel consumption across the country. Measures in the public sector include a 4-day work week for government employees and rotating work-from-home arrangements for half of the public staff. The measures also involve 2 weeks of school closures, online classes for higher education, cuts to official fuel use, salary reductions for ministers and lawmakers, and restrictions on foreign travel and in-person government meetings. This sounds really familiar. Pakistani authorities said the plan was meant to utilize the available reserves of oil in a judicious manner. Workers in Pakistan who depend on driving for their livelihoods report that rising petrol prices are eroding incomes and driving up the cost of everyday goods. Elsewhere in Asia, Bangladesh imposed daily fuel sale limits after what Reuters described as panic buying and stockpiling, with state-run Bangladesh Petroleum Corporation saying the curbs were meant to restrain excessive demand, calm the public, and keep nationwide stocks stable. Other Asian states activated contingency plans rather than immediate rationing, including fuel price caps, efforts to stabilize petrol prices, shifts in crude purchases away from Gulf routes, and reliance on reserves or alternative supply arrangements. Asia is the epicenter of the war-induced energy shock since it relies on the Persian Gulf for over 80% of its oil. Unlike the U.S., which is a net exporter, Asia faces a literal energy panic. And I did have to look that up, James. America exports most of its oil. The United States is a net exporter of petroleum products, meaning it exports more refined oil than it imports. In 2023, the U.S. exported about 10.15 million barrels per day of petroleum, including gas, diesel, jet fuel, making it the world's largest exporter of refined petroleum products. While the U.S. is also the largest producer of crude oil, 12.1 million barrels a day, it exports a significant portion of its crude, particularly light sweet crude from shale fields, of course, in Texas, North Dakota, and New Mexico, which feels like it should be a lot richer with all that oil that we provide. It's odd how New Mexico is still very, very poor. Is this the chart pressuring Trump toward an Iran off-ramp? That's the question Zero Hedge asked, because it did go pretty quickly to him saying, of course, we're not at war. Don't forget that, like Mike Johnson said. We're not at war. This is not a war. Also, Trump suddenly wants to end it really quickly. Iran vows to block oil shipments until U.S.-Israel attacks end, and war with Iran becomes the world's latest economic hazard. Trump insists the conflict will be brief, but world leaders are prepping for severe economic blowback. James?
Yes, James, there is a lot of moving parts on the table. There are a lot of moving parts on the table right now. So I'm sure people can appreciate all of the latest breaking news that is happening as we're recording this. Dozens of oil tankers divert to Red Sea as Saudis reroute crude flows from Hormuz choke point. We have the IEA, the International Energy Agency, to release a record 400 million barrels of oil from its stockpiles. We have the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, striking vessels who are attempting to cross the Strait of Hormuz, including a Thai-flagged dry bulk vessel, a Japan-flagged container ship, and a Marshall Islands-flagged bulk carrier, all hit by unidentified projectiles as they were attempting to, not heed the warnings not to enter the strait. And then we also, of course, have this land mine or sea mine, brouhaha that's taking place right now. Apparently, Iran maybe was trying to put mines in the strait, maybe, and Trump threatens consequences never seen before if Iran mines the Strait of Hormuz, which wasn't that old internet meme? Consequences like never before. Anyway, something like that. Anyway, so a lot of breaking news, but I guess, Brock, please put the temporal disclaimer, the New World Next Week temporal disclaimer on screen. That whatever happens in the 24 hours between the time we're recording this and the time that you actually see this, we don't know about. So we can't give you the latest up to the second breaking news. But I can attest to that Asian panic right now, because, of course, in Japan, we're starting to begin to feel the beginning of this. Gas prices already rising. And, of course, it was a top story on the news last night. How high will they go, essentially? And of course, I've read about Thailand and Malaysia and Pakistan and other places taking emergency measures and cutting office hours and all sorts of things to try to conserve oil at this point. And we'll see what eventuates from here. And I realize, look, I am fully cognizant that, oh my God, won't someone think of the price of gas is not necessarily the most important moral calculation we could be making as, bombs are dropping on schools full of schoolgirls and that sort of thing. But it is the one that might impact those people who are still cheering this on. Yay, yay. We got to get those damn terrorists and bring freedom to the Middle East or something. When has that ever gone wrong? But at the very least, once it starts affecting people in the pocketbook, it will start getting people to rethink their blind support for the U.S.-Israel war that's going on right now for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And as you say, you could be there even in the heart of oil country in New Mexico, but it's not like you're reaping any of the benefits. And I bet you gas prices are starting to creep up there as well. It's funny how this knocks on and goes around. So, excuse me. I'm so excited. I'm choking on my own spit. So, there are many things to say about this war and what's taking place right now. I would just say that the 2D summary of what's going on, these nation states against nation states, perhaps the best one I saw, I saw a Twitter post that was embedded in some article I was reading. It took the US 20 years to replace the Taliban with the Taliban, but only 9 days to replace Khamenei with Khamenei. Yay. So that's progress, isn't it? So that's a funny way of putting what has taken place on the 2D geopolitical chessboard. But as we all know, it's a 3D chessboard, and there are people puppeteering both sides of this. And we should not forget that Iran was complicit in the COVID scamdemic nonsense, like every other nation on the globe. And they played their part in all of this phony nonsense of the axis of resistance against NATO/Israel. It is a stage play, and we should be careful not to invest our identities in any of these fake teams.
James, I saw a really interesting compare and contrast of two different New York Times headlines, where the first one says, Iran claims a missile hit one of their schools and kids or whatever. And then the next article is, strike in Israel kills from Iranian missile. It's like everything Israel says is taken at face value. Anything Iran says is like, these liars made a claim that we're all blowing up schools and killing little kids. So again, fantastic job from the liars in the press. And James, it's the same thing in West Virginia. Out-of-state exploiters using the state's resources to dig all that coal and pump all that oil, and it goes, of course, to out of state. The insurance company's embargo thing is kind of huge on this as well, James. I got a few people sending me the article, and in some ways it does go over, again, my economic head. What role did marine insurers play in halting Hormuz traffic? Traffic through the Strait of Hormuz declined by 80% within 24 hours of strikes being launched on Iran as ship owners and charterers weighed whether to proceed with voyages. The insurance companies are saying, we ain't insuring that because we'd have to pay out. They don't get where they are paying out a bunch of payments to folks. James, you're coughing. I'm banging into my microphone. But this past week, I guess this is what passes for a slow news week. We're actually able to take a moment and kind of assess what has been going on at a pretty quick rate. Pretty fascinating story for our second story. UK Society of Authors launch logo to identify books written by humans, not AI. The Society of Authors has launched a scheme to help identify works written by humans in a market increasingly flooded by AI-generated books. The scheme is the first of its kind, launched by a UK trade association, and allows authors to register their books and download a human-authored logo to display on their back cover. No way anybody will steal that logo and put it on their AI slop. The SOA said the absence of any government measure, please government save us, to compel tech companies to label AI-generated output meant readers were struggling to distinguish between books written by a human and machine-generated works based on AI models trained on copywritten works without permission or payment. It mirrors a similar scheme launched by the Authors Guild in the U.S. at the beginning of 2025. Mary Beard, the classicist, that is Brit speak for ancient literature expert, one of several high-profile authors who have backed the scheme and plan to register their works on the human-authored website. It's only going to be human-authored books on my desert island, she said. Mallory Blackman, children's author, said the scheme seeks to highlight the imagination, commitment, craft, and care taken to produce stories and books which can be enjoyed by everyone. Any creative endeavor requires time, effort, a willingness to learn from mistakes, and a determination to persevere, lifelong essential skills which cannot be learned and honed by allowing AI to do all of our creative thinking and production for us. Surely, part of the pleasure of reading, listening to songs, watching films and dramas, looking at an artwork, and in fact, sharing any creative endeavor is that sense of connection with the content creator. That feeling that they are speaking to you on some deep emotional level that is entirely absent when the work has been produced by AI. James, the smartest, pithiest thing I could think of. This is basically the non-GMO project for books.
Yes, and I share your skepticism on this. Yeah, as if they won't just, slap this on their AI slop and, call it a day. I mean, I don't know how you enforce this or what kind of standards there are, how they check. Maybe I'll find out, because maybe I should get Reportage listed as a human authored book, because it was no AI used in the creation of that book. So let's see what, maybe I'll do that and make a little video about it. Like, what is the process and how does it work?
That's a great
but
idea.
Yeah, again, what is the standard? Who is creating this standard? What does it mean? Like, what if somebody does AI research? I asked Grok and it told me this, and then I wrote a story about it. Like, I don't know. Again, where do you draw the lines with this? But having said that, I'm not against the idea. I think it's a good idea to at least be able to identify human created content over AI generated slop. And my concern of it, once you drill into this article and the associated articles that they're linking to about this subject, you'll find a lot of the authors are protesting because intellectual property. And they're concerned, AI is fed and trained on our copyrighted material, and thus it's taking our work and stealing it. Well, as people know, I'm not a big fan of the concept of intellectual property itself. So my inclination against the AI generated work is not so much on that regard. It is more to do with what I think is one of the greater fears of all of this is not that AI is going to, kill us or replace us or something like that. It's that we are going to essentially become like the AI, because we will give over our thinking and our creative processes to it. And yeah, I really don't know what the point of consuming an AI generated novel would be. What is the point of that? Even just theoretically, conceptually, even if it tickles your funny bone or it makes you interested or whatever it is, it's still, it just doesn't seem real and it seems pointless. And it was just something that was generated from a machine. I don't know. Personally, I'm against that. And thus I'm going to find out what's involved with this label and whether or not someone like myself can get it slapped on my work.
It's really fascinating. And again, as we've talked about for decades, it's the idea. That's the powerful thing. It's not Airbnb or what. It's the idea that, hey, you're a free human being and you can share your car out to somebody or rent out a room in your place, or say that your books are written by humans. James, it's a little bit like the AI pop songs. I like knowing what I'm in for, and I know that it's an outlet that says, we do comedic, satirical AI songs. It's when it's the tricks, when people have tried to pass off things. I believe you and I talked maybe off mic about that new country song that was breaking up the charts that was all completely AI, doing it surreptitiously. Again, as I talked about on New World Next Year, 2026, I think it's some of those channels like Almost Vinyl that are very open and very sort of open about what they do. I guess I don't have the misgivings about that I would in other areas, whether that's GMO foods or AI media, I suppose. And it is 6:41 p.m., March 11th, 2026. As I talk to you right now, 6 years ago today, on March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic, and 2 days later, on Friday the 13th, Orange Man dutifully bent the knee and instituted all the mandates and lockdowns. Elusive COVID justice after 6 years. Where are the prosecutions? A year and change into the golden age, a deep and thus far unquenched thirst for justice among a huge portion of the massive MAGA base notwithstanding. The administration has prosecuted zero COVID criminals. What's more, the Department of Justice, of course, with Pam Bondi Beach, isn't promising to prosecute Americans for hate speech or rolling out new schemes to cover up all their involvement in Epstein, hasn't scrounged up any time to bother investigating any of them. No prosecutions, no investigations, no press releases. Nothing but radio silence. The guy running HHS, RFK Jr., wrote a big, beautiful book elaborately detailing the rampant criminality of Fauci and many more of his co-conspirators, and yet crickets, nothing. Criminal conspiracy, which these people provably engaged in, typically has a 5-year statute of limitations. Now, this is interesting. The key provision, though, is that the clock on the 5-year statute of limitations window for criminal conspiracy only commences once the conspiracy has concluded. As the conspiracy, the shot mandates, the forced masking, the business closures continued deep into 2023 and arguably beyond, we are still well within the 5-year window for conspiracy prosecution. A short but wildly incomplete list: Anthony Fauci, Peter Daszak, Deborah Birx, Peter Morens, Francis Collins, Rachel Walensky, and I forgot about Mandy Cohen, Walensky's replacement. shown on camera gleefully explaining how she arbitrarily enforced COVID lockdowns on the public with no scientific basis. None of these people, for the record, benefited from the flurry of pardons issued by whoever Biden was in the auto pen on his way out the door, of course, with the exception of Anthony Fauci. And if Fauci's pardon, indeed, if it was signed by an auto pen, as it probably was, also highly suspect. Other anniversaries on this date, James, as Fukushima memories fade, Japan embraces nuclear-powered future, and to, I suppose, come full circle like the snake eating its tail on this New World Next Week, Vietnam urges people to work from home to save fuel as Iran war disrupts supplies. It's just all right there.
Yeah, it is all right there. And yes, on the COVID note, yeah, I want to say no surprise that, of course, no prosecutions have happened. But remember, guys, Trump is coming back in and Bobby's there and Maha's in the ascendant. The prosecutions are about to start. No, they are not. There is no justice. There is only just us, as has been observed. And on the Fukushima note, just to put the capper, or is it the shoes, on this Ouroboros snake episode, it has been a remarkable thing to watch. I remember 15 years ago when obviously the events of Fukushima ignited a huge anti-nuclear movement here, and people were literally out on the streets protesting. I covered some of that. And what has resulted? Well, now 15 years later, it's like, no, we definitely need energy and we're importing too much of it. Start throwing the nuke plants back on. And that is exactly what's happening. So it's been a remarkable thing to witness. And we'll see where it goes from here. Hard to believe that was 15 years ago, but here we are.
Here we are. And 3/11 is no shortage of other interesting giant anniversaries. Is it the Madrid bombings and others? The only people, James, we've seen prosecuted because of COVID were the people busted scamming the scam money that they were doling out to everybody. You hear these little regional conspiracies. Someone misspent all the COVID money they got, which again, it's a scam. So everything downhill from it was a scam as well. But let's not forget the other people prosecuted, of course, those handful of heroes we heard about giving out saline shots instead of the deadly MAGA jabs. We run NewWorldNextWeek.com for monarchy gear, for Corbett gear, for DVDs. James, I've been watching a lot of World War documentaries. And so even what you say there about Japan to look now in 2026 is like, holy moly. It's as sad as it is to say, World War history is kind of the history of the world, or at least for the last 100, maybe 200 or so years. Really fascinating things. May you live in interesting times, they threatened us with. And I also get the exclusive audio of these New World Next Week episodes. I play them on my Monarchy Radio before they are published anywhere. And you can access that at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. James, that is New World Next Week, episode 622, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And thank you for reminding people about the store. I hope they will go to newworldnextweek.com, buy some of the swag. It supports both of our work and keeps it going. We've been here for over 15 years. And so we were here covering Fukushima as it happened, as the long timers in the crowd will remember. And we're going to be here hopefully another 15 years covering whatever craziness is happening there. So please support the work. It's what makes it possible. On that note, let's wrap it up here. James, thank you for the 3 stories.
Thanks so much, buddy. Take care.
I'm just gonna dance now, fuck this shit, 'cause we don't have a chance now. The whole world is fucking gone to hell. Makes me wanna fucking scream and yell. Fuck this shit, I'm just gonna dance now, fuck this shit, 'cause we don't have a chance now.
Guys, all rock. Thank you for being here and hanging out and being a part of the show. We do love the hell out of you. And we can't do the damn thing without you. It's a value for value gig here. If you're new here, you're kind of, just getting into the thing. This is how the show works. Every time you see not only AM Wake Up, but every other show that airs on the channels, all of that content comes to you for free. Nothing is ever going to be put behind a paywall. There's no subscribe to this to get that. You don't have to learn a secret handshake. We get $0 from advertisers. We get $0 from paid sponsors. That's why you don't hear 10 or 12 minutes of ad reads and shit at the beginning of the show or throughout it, because it doesn't exist in this environment. Instead, if you guys see value in what we're doing, you like the conversations, you like the guests, you like the jokes, whatever it is, if you see value in that, send it this way, and that's how we get to do the thing. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can participate. There's a couple of things that we definitely need to see from you guys. Most importantly, time, talent, and treasure. Time and talent, because it's just me doing all of the things 7 days a week in order to make sure that you guys see this stuff and I participate and hit the fucking like button. It's not going to break your wrist. I promise. I promise. On the talent end, if you make clips, please do that and get them out there. I don't care if 3 people are going to see it. If you tag us, we'll retweet it too, and then 3 more people are going to see it. The way that we're buried in the algorithm. But, you know, it helps. Every little bit helps. Exact same philosophy applies to the treasure part. Every little bit helps. If you're at all in a position to contribute to independent media, all of the direct donate links, including Bitcoin, are in the description. So if you have, 55 Bitcoin and you want to give the show 1, it's going to get dispersed to at least 5 other content creators that day.
Kind of a fucking ass clown wouldn't have the heart and compassion to donate to baby Steve.
Now, let's take a look at some highlights from AM Wake Up from this week. Make sure to support and share their show to keep this great channel going. Share the show. Share the show. Share the show.
Share the fucking show.
Sunday. If you guys want to tune in at midnight, I'm going to be talking giant human skeletons in the Library of Congress in my recent finds. I found it's interesting. Anyways,
my hometown is famous for giant skeletons.
Oh, I believe it. Which town are you from? Are you
Anderson, Indiana. Anderson, Indiana. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a ton of them in Wisconsin. And when I went through the Library of Congress about 20 years ago, I found almost 1,000 of them, and I started publishing them. I used to blog for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel under The City Now, and I had this segment called The Critical Thinker. And this is before I really knew what journalism is. So I probably pirated some of my work back then because you're just starting. I got yelled at. They're like, what are you doing? You're sampling other people's stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you had to research what a journalist is.
You were the Diddy of your era.
Oh, yeah. Without the great parties and the lube, right?
Right? Well, I mean, let's hope.
Let's hope, right?
We don't make assumptions, but let's hope.
Let's hope. Anyway,
who did you talk to, and or who are you going to be talking to at AM Wake Up? I mean, I'm so tired.
Richard Seard is doing the show on Sunday, and he does Strange Planet, and he's a very interesting guy, right?
Cool.
So I mean, I've heard a lot of dirt. I've been in the industry for a long time where I've heard dirt about everybody and anywhere. And at some point, I've had to give everybody a chance. That was always my thing when I came into this. Even with Kenosha, when CNN called me, I said, give me a day to think about it. I thought about it. I got back to them, and they were running with my Kyle Rittenhouse story, which if anyone knows me, I'm a genuine person, right? I do on the boots, on the ground, independent journalism. I'm not paid by anyone. I barely get by. I'm lucky I'm eating grilled cheese still at 47. I'm out here because I am passionate and I love what I do. And I try to give everyone a chance. And if they slander me, like the New York Times, and they didn't really slander me. They called me Alex Jones's little cousin. And, the New Yorker came out and they had a problem. GQ, I was in GQ because all of a sudden I'm in Kenosha because of what I did in Kenosha. I'm in GQ and AP and nobody's calling me. And I realized it's because I was on Alex Jones's show. I'm like, well, fuck them then. I don't give a fuck. At the end of the day, the truth got out there. And I don't care if I make money or not. I just want people to know the truth. There was no green screen at the Rittenhouse trial, all the bullshit that was going on, and we still have it. Now we have AI to deal with. Holy shit! What's real and what's not?
Well, I will say though, it's a good problem to have. To be, there's plenty of people that wish they were being made fun of in those papers. Right. It's kind of like, well, cool. At least it's getting out there. They have to shout down what I'm saying as opposed to ignoring it entirely. What I've often said about Alex Jones, I mean, I think my criticism of him are very publicly known, but he has always been somebody who I said this during COVID-19. There was a lot of doctors who didn't necessarily know at least what I would think about him or what I might feel what the platform does, who recognized that he was one of the only people that was willing to let them say what they had to say.
Well, Gary Webb's been on there, all the whistleblowers. All the whistleblowers go on there. And listen, I CNN talked to me and they're like, well, you've been on Alex Jones. And I said, well, if your problem, if you want the truth and you want the truth to get out there and I'm on Alex Jones, then I can fix the problem that you believe he's causing. So the real question is do you hate Alex Jones just because he's Alex Jones, or is it really the information? And at the end of the day, it's just because it's Alex fucking Jones. And
well, but I mean, just for to be clear about, I think he's we don't have to get into it in case we disagree on his opinion of him.
No, it's okay to disagree. I love that.
Low opinion of him, and there was a lot of us talking to those doctors, but at the level and the reach that he had, that was the point. And so I still say that's a good, there's things that he said that were correct at some point. And I think that is, that a lot of doctors did that and a lot of different people at different conversations because they just see, well, look, I mean, I get to stand up and there's a huge audience and I say what I think. And so I get it, and so, and on top of that, for CNN or whatever else, or anybody for that matter, to say, I'm not going to look at you or talk to you or consider what you say because you talked to that person. That is just like the lowest, stupidest thing in the conversation.
No, that's the way it went too. That's the way the whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing went. As soon as I was like, they were making me into like this, like what they would consider a, what did they call me? They called me a protest, like a referee. They're like trying to make me the focal point of all these documentaries. Right. And after another, they all pulled out. All the major ones, the BBC cut me, Washington Post cut me, New York Times, they cut me. Everyone started to cut me. And I'm okay with that. Listen, I know people, I don't agree with half the people I do shows with, but the purpose is that we work together and that we develop a independent system where we can amplify voices. Jones has never taken me out of context. Jones hasn't manipulated my work, and I've turned in a document as it's a fragment of what it is, like a New York Times article. He always was genuine and he was always real with me. Now, the things he says doesn't mean I have to agree with him. I don't agree with the shit my mom says half the time. She's a Trump mom, but I love my fucking mom. I go over to her house, we have a conversation, and I'm okay with that. And now you're hearing Jones echo everything Cristian T. Harris was saying. And before that, I have to give credit to my former co-host, Don Vi Jr. He was really on the anti-Trump train from the get-go, and I knew there was a good chance he was right, but for the benefit of the doubt, I was in the middle, and I'm like, okay, a lot of our audience feels this way. Let's see how this plays out before I jump the ship. And it was exactly like he said it was. And I'm not going to disagree. There's huge problems right now because this dude, he wants that North American Union. Come on, Greenland. Come on, Mexico. Come on, Venezuela. What else can we go? Let's go over to Iran. And they're burning ball statues. Those horrible Iranians burning ball statues and anti-Luciferian. Let's go fucking destroy that and put in a Federal Reserve Bank. Hell yeah, let's do that, because that's what's happening.
And that's the weird thing for me is that and just from a good good-natured kind of like caution, I see some dishonesty from that person, that platform, and not just allowance. Just be cautious, because I've been taken out of context. I have been censored on his platform. But the point though is that today, it seems that these people are feeling, like you mentioned, the North American Union, the globalism that's on full display. It's crazy to me that we have people that at once had been very, very, very vocal about that, who have now seemed to have, I think, ignoring the most obvious example, save like the literal Great Reset push that we've ever seen. I find that to be hard to wrap my mind around, and it's like, and look, I'll always put it out there. Maybe it's not devious. Maybe they just don't fucking see it.
No, I think it's the dollar. The almighty dollar is what runs things. And I'm going to be honest with you. That's what I see. At some point, you realize the money's in the conservative media outlet. You know which way you go where the money's at if you want to run a business. But now that the money's going away, you're hearing him come back to his roots a little bit. Well, who knows? But that's it. But it's interesting, right? Well, the question is, do you believe in redemption at the end of the day? I have to. I've been a bad person.
No, I was just talking about that. I was just saying this about anybody we look at, even a Trump, or maybe if whoever. For me, they're all the same. I think Trump, Biden is the government. But if it's somebody you certainly don't like, or a media personality, or whatever side it is, someone that you're just convinced is the worst, most lying person, we should still hope that maybe it's possible that they can recognize that and turn around and be honest, even though I'll probably never be able to accept that. I said it last night too, but we should be hoping for that. Maybe somebody, or more about the category of somebody who's not necessarily a shill, but just actually believes they're what they're, and then suddenly they go, wow. I say this about a possible, maybe that was what Kirk went through. Maybe he was genuinely starting to recognize the Zionism-Israel difference. And that's kind of what I think actually happened. But my point is, I was talking about Tucker, for example, is I really like what he's been saying lately, but I'm very skeptical. And I think I'll never be able to fully, which again, we never really should trust anybody in this field. Just question, consider.
None of us are perfect.
Exactly. But we should have hope for that, right? Like maybe like for example, from the people that hate Donald Trump and like Trump, never Trump. It's like, well, what if he started doing literally everything you ever wanted? Would you still go fuck Trump? Probably most of them, right? And it's
well,
like
it's confirmation bias, right?
Shouldn't you want it? Sorry, go ahead. What'd you say?
It's confirmation bias at the end of the day. Like you shouldn't want somebody that completely agrees with you, but challenges you a little bit, but makes important right decisions, right? At the end of the day. And I, it's interesting because I echo Ryan. Very beautiful what you had to say there. I agree with a lot of it, like the teachings of Yeshua, the original teachings of Yeshua that Rome really hated, and philosophers and theologians in Rome really hated. There was a saying right after Christ died, if you believe such a thing, his followers said something that was very controversial. It was bigger the sinner, bigger the saint. They would chant, bigger the sinner, bigger the saint. That even the most worst fucking person out there, whether it's Bill Gates or somebody who's eating fucking babies, can change your life and be a testament of what real true change is and the goodness that redemption is, that you can find that inner Christ and be a good person. And I got to believe in that redemption because we're all sinners at the end of the day. Now, does that mean that there's no accountability? I'm not saying that there's no accountability, right? I'm saying people can change. Like what would happen if Epstein came forward and said, yeah, they're eating babies, they got adrenochrome, here's all the data, I'm coming out, these are all the people involved, and then he dies. Did he redeem himself? Do we believe in that redemption, that person could change your life and be a testament of a good work? And I have to believe that because at some point I'm a bad person deep down in my DNA. I was born in the sin, and that's my belief. No, you guys don't have to agree with me in my belief. I respect everyone's beliefs. I think it's great that people, in fact, in order for you to believe what you want to believe, I got to allow you to have that freedom to be able to believe what I want to believe. Right. So I support your rights as long as it's nonviolent. So that's what I believe. I believe in non-aggression. I don't believe in wars. I don't think Christ would support this war. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. And I think you got a bunch of MK Ultra trauma bonded mind control motherfuckers out there that are just falling hook, line, and sinker. And it's my job to wake people up, whether it's through the Christian church or it's through other things, just having these conversations. And not everyone needs to believe what I believe. I respect people based on, having, even if they have different beliefs. Today on my show, I'm having Micah Dank on. He doesn't believe the Bible at all, but he believes in astrology, theology that's in the Bible. What was that?
I haven't heard that fella's name in a really long time. All right, man. Good for him for being out still.
I think Cristian and I are like I can't even think of the fucking right phrase, but it's funny that we're both like, I think you and I could probably talk without break. That's why you do the show that you do. Like, we're just very similar in the way that we do it. Like, it's a compliment for me, man.
Oh, thank you, man.
We engage. And what I'm trying to say is it's more about this is actually a very, like, I've read into this about being able to, and that's what makes a good show. It's what I'm doing right now, actually. Connecting multiple thoughts in one kind of, like what you're doing is jumping from one thought and then finding it, connecting it tangential to something else and how it ties to other things. It's respect, man. I mean, that's not everybody does. Most people can focus on a point and go at it. And sort of, and that takes respect too, or rather skill to be able to focus in and do it. But I just think it's I noticed the same thing from us that, when you get a mic and a show and you're the one doing it for the, you end up just getting into it. You go to thought, and it's just funny. I appreciate that. We're very similar. Is my point.
It's ADHD. That's why we always called it the Rundown Live, because, most radio programs that are an hour or 2 hours, they have like 2 topics. We'll mow through like 20. We'll talk designer babies, artificial womb facilities. Are you going to get like, would you want an AI translator so you could talk to your fucking cat or dog? Like cool things. But then there's the other things. Is some chick going to get a little Baphomet baby? She's going to be like goth. And she's like, oh, I want the little elf from Lord of the Rings. The one they got from the Witchcraft Bible when they wrote the book. Let's have that little elf from Lord of the Rings there. And, you start to wonder, where's this world going? And then you read the Epstein files about cloning and Britney Spears. It's like, what the fuck is really real at the end of the day? Do we even know what's really real?
We know that we're getting a brand new Wayans Brothers Scream movie, and that's what's really important, right?
Did you say Wayans Brothers as in Scary Movie Wayans Brothers?
Yeah.
Is it Wayans Brothers or is it like one of the Wayans?
No, it's at least 2 of them.
Is it really? That's funny.
Well, I know one of them was doing stand-up in Milwaukee, and he was so drunk at the Improv that he couldn't tell jokes as a verbal disaster. He was speaking in cursive,
Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen anybody crash out at a comedy club really bad lately. But
I always wanted to start an intellectual show and call it Speaking in Cursive, because Wisconsin's the beer capital of the world. Just kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Right after you speak in cursive, you yawn the Technicolor rainbow.
And I'm casting a spell on you, as you know, because, putting symbols together, that meaning is called a spell. And when you stitch them together, it's a curse. And then rite has ritual in it as an RITE. So you can just let the whole thing conjure itself there. We can do some abracadabra.
We're still not going to Wisconsin, buddy. As
bro,
hard as you lobby, it's not. We're not.
I might have Green Bay Packer tickets for you, brother.
Is there a point in that point right there that you can have a spell that's not a curse?
Well, absolutely, because there are different types of spells, right? It's
like
all
positive side versus negative. Do you see it that way?
I think it's a tool. Like it's like AI, right? There's positive and negative. The thing is, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. King Solomon was like having demons, like build them temples and like mine is mines, allegedly, if you believe in Sol Oman, which is 3 words for sun. Om, Sol Oman, and it's another sun deity per se, but was he a real person? Very well could have been. It's all ritual there. And so I guess, I joke about the demons being slaves and stuff because they could be very real. I think a lot of people believe them to be real. And I've learned from all these, I was telling Steve last week and a half, I've interviewed about 5 MK Ultra survivors. And I have to question almost my entire reality if what they say is true. I interviewed one of the Montauk boys who talked about how he had a helmet on his head and he could bring things from his mind into reality just by believing such things. And it caused disaster and destroyed Camp Hero and caused them to shut it down. And I asked him, and there's like, did you bring those things into fruition to kill the people that were hurting you and harming you? And he said, I believe that's exactly why I did what I did, because they went and they destroyed the whole Camp Hero because of the SRA, which is a satanic ritual abuse that he went through, and he knew it. He was at the age where he understood at 12 that it was wrong. And it was very interesting, and just that's kind of what led me down all this like satanic panic bullshit, and John Todd talking about how he was right. Alyssa E., another MK Ultra survivor, was on my broadcast talking about it, and they all have different stories, but they all come back to the same point. So I'm starting to wonder, either they've been programmed to believe that there was satanic ritual abuse in their life, or there really was. And
I'm glad you said that too. See, that's the objectivity that I tend to miss in some of these conversations, right? Like that consideration that maybe, even like, so I was going to ask you about that point right there in general. So you seem to be interviewing a lot of people like this, or that seems to be, a lot of the field that you get into. Since that's the case, like, how do you, when you do that, so like you're interviewing an MK Ultra or a targeted individual, I have a hard time with that. I think we can literally prove that those things exist. But how do you interview somebody? How do you figure out whether you can take them? Like, how do you find that they're credible, or are you just getting into it as if it could be and let them tell their story? Like, because I find that a hard thing from like a journalistic perspective. How do you vet that story?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Well, I promised myself I would ask hard questions.
Right.
So, and I kind of acknowledge that some of them have word salads and how they respond to things, and some of them they didn't even have to think twice. They knew exactly, and their story has been the same throughout it. So either it's a programmed response or it's exactly what they went through. And when I was talking to Chris, he's one of the Montauk boys, I got real deep into it, and you could tell he got a little emotional, and that he would explain that the government, like, Chris's story is essentially this. I have a whole hour, so we can get a little bit into it. And you guys can go watch it on the Rundown Live Rumble. Follow me on the Rumble there. Or on YouTube now. They stopped blocking me. They ruined my own channel. But Chris, anyways, his story essentially was when he was 6 years old, he went into a school studies, and they knew that what they were getting into. His parents knew what they were getting into. It was a government study, and they said if he was selected, that he would never have to worry about money again. They'd have a 401k. And essentially that they were selling their children's soul away. They were gambling with their child's soul, that they could, his kid could have a great future. He'd be doing a great service to the government. He would be doing great things for the government. And when they tried to categorize him, they asked him, well, do you like Star Wars? Do you into the futuristic things, cool witchcrafty things, probably for the era? Because no one saw anything like Star Wars in the 1970s. When that came out, it blew people's mind. People saw it 5-6 times, those special effects, those kind of things. So kids that were into that, they felt were susceptible. And he passed the test, and the mother and father agreed to give the government, give him into the government. And they knew, he said they already heard of all the woo-woo stuff around MK Ultra, because this was in the 70s. So they've already had many years of MK Ultra, and they expressed that it was to help our government, that he would be a good asset. And so he said on the first day of school, he looked into a camera and all they did is show him snuff films, death and ritualistic abuse, flashing with many colors. And not just him, but other people that were there, were exposed to this. And it kept going. Every day he'd go in. He said one day, he said all of a sudden every morning his mother would put a drip of acid in his mouth. And they said it wasn't enough to make him feel anything or he wouldn't see anything, but they believed it opened up his pineal gland to the spiritual world so he could astral project.
They had
a
micro
kind of things.
in freaking recess. Which, I mean, look, I did in junior high and high school, but that was voluntary.
My best friend growing up, he told me his older brother put he said a bunch of acid on his sister's tongue while she was sleeping when they were in high school. Can you believe that? Anyway, keep going. I think that's fucking insane.
Yeah, so he went on to tell me these, and it sounds believable because he said his father at one point got in a huge fight with his mother and tried to get him out, and he said, "My kid will not be a MK Ultra mental case, right?" Because the kid, he couldn't tell his parents. They threatened him, right? You can't tell your parents anything. He said children died during the experiment. He said that they would pay out $300,000 in the late 70s, early 80s. That's a lot of money. That's probably equivalent to $2-3 million now. So like he said that there were cases. He said at the end of the first year, half the kids that were in the school were gone. He said he didn't know what happened to him. He was young, but he kept going through the program until he was learning to astral project, how to remote view. And he said all of it had to do with out-of-body experiences. And they told him that when he had an out-of-body experience, not to leave the body too far. And I asked him, well, does that mean that other things and entities could enter your body? Because I remember, this is a bad attachment. This is a bad link, but it ended up being accurate. Back in the day on Coast to Coast AM, there was this guy named Steve Gibbs. He developed what was called the hyperdimensional resonator. It was like this magnetic coil you put around your head. And essentially he said that you could will things into existence, time travel, and all this crazy shit with it. But he said the same thing. He said, if you astral project that a demon or another entity could come into your body. And when you start reading the Yellow Book stuff, it's all about your body being a container and your soul is in the container and all this other weird stuff. That's at least what they believe, or somebody believes that they wrote about it. But anyways, so I brought up this point and he's like, yeah, that's accurate. That's very interesting, blah, blah, blah. They told us not to go too far. And he said, because if you don't make it to back to your body, you die. And he said kids were dying. And I said, well, how do they cover that? He's like, well, they just pay the parents off. They give them large sums of money. And the parents knew this. There was a risk getting involved. So basically it was hush money. And so I talked to Chris about his involvement on Talk and the fact that he stays in contact with other victim survivors, I feel is very credible because like I can tell you from my personal experience who've seen people murdered in front of them in Kenosha. Okay. I was about, I would say about 20 yards from the second and third shooting. I was the first reporter on scene after Jacob Blake was shot. I had the most extensive coverage of Kyle Rittenhouse, just giving you guys a little background. You can find that all online. You could go and I could tell you that I still have like PTSD, not terrible. It's like, I think about what could I have said to Kyle that would have saved those people's lives. They weren't good people. Nobody needed to die that day. Right. Nobody needed to really be killed. And when I had the most time with Kyle, I was probably around him for about an hour and a half. The Fed said an hour and a half of footage with him. It's wild to me to think about, like, in my mind, what could I have done to said things to save those kids' life? At the same time, I know Kyle did the right thing by protecting his life, but he shouldn't have been there in the first place. If that was my kid, I would have beat his ass, buried him, and started all over again. Joking. But like, it just, we all kind of come together. Like I'll talk to Richie McGinnis, I'll talk to CJ Halliburton, I'll talk to Nate DeBruin. We'll all come together. We'll have conversations. It's like sitting there with a bunch of vets. Even when I talk to people that are involved to this day with stuff like Ford Fisher, we get along because like we've been through some crazy shit, like covering this stuff. Violence, January 6th, George Floyd. I was there when the third precinct burnt down. Like I've covered a lot of crazy stuff, and it really it brings me together. Now, how do I end up talking to these people? Well, as a bartender for 8 years. Not only that, I bartended at an adult like a strip club for a year, and you think you hear fucked up shit as a bartender. Go work at a strip club for a year as a bartender, and you'll hear like what you hear is what you're hearing about satanic ritual abuse. Women who have been abused, that don't feel like that they have anything to give. They don't have men in their life. They can't have functional relationships because they never had a good man in their life, so they don't know how to treat a good man. And then they get a good man, they fuck it up, and then they hate their lives even more because they don't understand what a good man looks like, right? Because their whole life they had somebody shitty. So you start to talk and you try to sympathize and understand that a lot of the issues they have, it wasn't their choice. Their life choices or their situations as a survival mechanism have made them liars. They have made them like dishonest or made them have problems in their life, and they don't know how to handle those things. Confrontation, to get out of trouble, they had to lie all the time. So like you have to understand the psychology, and I think that there's some truth that bartending and psychology, they go hand in hand. Most psychologists are bartenders at some point in their life because the whole time you're there, you're helping people. So when I do the show and I have these questions, I sometimes ask some very personal questions, and I saw these people get uncomfortable. Like I had one person that didn't even want to talk about the satanic ritual abuse. That to me is authentic too. Like within reason, like it isn't like, oh no, like you could see the soul leave, like remembering these things and facial expressions. At least they believe it. So like I can't tell you what is real and what is not, and who's telling the truth or who is not. I can just put the information out there for you to make a decision. I wasn't there with them. Unless I have a fucking time machine, I can't go back in and see what they're doing. But what I can tell you is these are witnesses directly involved in MK Ultra. Well, and that's their claim. I don't think I would choose a life to say, yeah, I sacrificed a baby and drank his fucking blood. It was fun. You're like I wouldn't be on TV saying that kind of shit. You think somebody might go to jail for that. Maybe they want somebody to investigate because they want to be able to tell them that. But again, the government is never held accountable, it seems like, for any of their actions.
Well, I would argue, like I said, just from the perspective of we want to let them tell their story regardless, because like that's the point, is that at some level, a lot of these things you can't vet. And that's why I tend to be kind of hesitant to get into it, because my work tends to focus aggressively on like what we can prove in the moment, right? And so it should, but if you're coming at it like your artist, want to have them tell their story and to interrogate that, I find that really interesting, because how else do you get into that? Because we know these things exist, right? MK Ultra is not, everybody knows that if they pay attention, and it's pretty provable it never actually stopped. In regard to the targeted individual part of it, I mean, there's so many clear examples of how obviously every mechanism of that does exist. It's just so hard to actually prove that in the moment. So it's, it needs to be done. And I think that's important. Derek, if you're Derek Bros.
Yeah, I know Derek. Derek and I are good friends, actually.
Well, that's good to know. Well, because he does, then you already know, amazing work. Like he did a whole thing for conscious resistance on the finders, but for TLAP, he did a really big focus on like Utah, breaking into multiple parts. But it started with the Utah investigation of the child sexual, ritual sexual satanic abuse. And that was straight directly from the Utah Sheriff's Department and Hamblin. And it was crazy the way that went down. And still nothing apparently ended up happening. And all the evidence was the Utah Sheriff's Department was absolutely convinced. The point though, is then it kind of broke into these other parts of the story. And we got contacts, people all the way back to the satanic panic point. What's his name? God, it's off the top of my head. The guy who actually did the original report called Are the Children Lying? We have that original source material. If you're ever interested in that, I've got it all in the safe somewhere, like all the actual original long form interviews, like the whole damn thing. Somebody sent us that because we were investigating it. And the point was, it's just the amount of evidence is insane about what they went through, what they were telling, and points that you just can't deny. But there's also, I think it ends up getting mixed with things that are completely unverifiable, not necessarily false, and that just becomes impossible to actually prove. And average people tend to dismiss it. And then you get the propaganda over the top that makes you ignore it. It's just such a quagmire, but such an important conversation. So, I mean, I credit for getting into it at all, because
I think I'm old school. So the old school standard was listen to everybody. Okay. First of all, listen to everyone, question everything, and don't believe unless you can prove it with your own two hands.
That's called
nearly halfway through the month already, which is acceleratory, kind of weird. Welcome to Wednesday, everybody, with the esteemed Reverend Dr. T. Snyder.
Not a rocket scientist.
I would put your fake PhD up against Naomi Wolf's real PhD any day of the week.
Yeah. On the book I did with my mom, I had For the Win as a joke as my accreditation. Like, hers was PhD, mine was FTW, because I think that's basically like says as much as any formal education. But the funny thing about Naomi Wolf, who you mentioned, it's like she's a Rhodes Scholar, so that's a very different education. You're not out there to be educating people. You're out there to be running in circles so that they don't get educated. Kind of like that's what happened with Bros.
I don't know. I thought Bros had the patience of all of the saints rolled together and then distilled and extracted into one like fat dab of saints that he just sort of inhaled all at once.
Well, I guess I'll put it this way. It's like, it's sort of just like staring at a prison guard who's kind of just like off the rails in their own internment of the dick they're made to suck by showing up every day to work at what more or less amounts to an entrainment encampment. Like when she was in the Clinton administration, she talked about how they'd mention where they were trying to get, and then they'd change the story to get there at the discretion of how they needed to in order to arrive at the goal. So that's someone who's fundamentally talking about, like, if you're in a room with a bunch of people, they're just like, we'll just lie and do whatever we need to get whatever we're trying to get. And then she's like, okay, cool, I'll run with that and just keep working here. It's like, that's scum. If you're internal within like that much of a criminal organization thinking of things that way, it's like, and yeah, Bros had like so it's just like, I'm thinking of it, it's like practiced staring down of people who are that horrible. Yeah.
Oh, is that what that stare was? I thought it was like, there's no way in hell you can get me to crack on your bullshit misandrist fucking ageist condescending fucking trigger points. I'm not going to fall for that tactic, because I saw that as a tactic of somebody who knew 15-20 seconds in that they were way the fuck over their head and they weren't going to have an argument. So the only thing that they could do is derail, filibuster, ad hominem, character assassinate, and otherwise attempt to deflect and distort, rather than engage in any sort of substantive debate or even conversation or exchange of ideas, because all she had was what she heard on Sean Hannity's show the night before.
Yeah, but that's her job, is to promote and repeat those narratives. I wonder, what I'm saying is that I know she's horrible, and her surface level, like, I'll give you an example. One time when she wrote the book Vagina, I think a group of feminists got together to talk to her about like how pretentious it was. And they're like, okay, maybe if you named it My Vagina, not, you're not all women. Okay, I get that that's how you like to think of things, but no. And so I get,
that's funny when the feminists are calling in another feminist to be like, hey, so actually, could you just tone it down a little bit?
Yeah. No, she's that person.
That's monumental.
Yeah, she's kind of correct about, like, she is correct about a lot of the COVID stuff, but it's like the broken clock effect, and it makes you wonder about the overlap between deep state plants and what happens to them as they reach the troll doll stage of their cross-pollination with various different weird strains of narrative in order to eventually see them arrive at the dead end of an empire. Yeah.
That was wild. It was. The whole thing was.
I didn't watch the interview. I saw clips of it and I read a bunch of comments, and I pretty well gathered what happened from that.
I haven't seen it all the way through. We did like a live react yesterday when Ryan was here, and that was fun.
You're just freaking out the whole time.
Well, because Bros couldn't, so we were doing it for him. We were the Greek chorus to what was going on during that debate, and I think it made for some very entertaining, radio or whatever the fuck this is. I think it was fun. But yeah, it was just off. And Bros got a hold of me later in the day. He was like, dude, I just watched you and Ryan break that down. You guys were cracking me up. Okay, well, that's good. Mischief managed. That's the important part. Tim Hinchcliffe has a couple of great clips of that, including my favorite line of the whole thing, which was, I'm happy to talk about all of that, but we're here to debate whether or not the U.S. should have bombed Iran, not why Derek moved to Mexico.
Did he say that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and she was like, okay, fine, we'll move on. And then she goes, but you still hate America. And he's like, okay. That's what that is the exact tone. That's the exact inflection. That you know how Derek normally talks, and it was okay.
No, it's the correct thing, because a lot of the time it's just catching someone so they can see themselves. It's not anything else.
Oh, beauty, eh? Let's do some jokes.
Pedophiles are a huge problem in this audience, and we put one pedophile at every show. I can't tell you where, but you're making it obvious. But it's someone here. I just finished reading the Epstein files, or as I call them, the group chat leak for billionaires, and I've concluded he's innocent. Now, Howard Lutnick was probably my favorite, if you saw that. Right? When they first asked him if he ever knew Epstein, he's like, I met him one time, and I was like, you get away from me, you creep. And then after the emails came out, he had to do another press conference. He's like, okay, we did start a couple businesses together. There might be a few emails where I sent him a picture of me saying where the pussy at. You know, yes, we started a pizza parlor together. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, fine. Me and Epstein may have spent a summer in Amsterdam together where we rode a double bicycle across the Riviera. And at the end of the summer, we held hands and say, let's never let this summer end, while Goo Goo Dolls played in the background. We might have done that. Fine. There might have been some sacrifices going on. Oh my God. I'm not Epstein's biographer. I couldn't see anything. Do you know how dark it is in the middle of a 3-man horse costume? I don't know everything this guy's doing. Brian Johnson was my second favorite, the biohacker. He's like 50, but he says his biological age is 25, which kind of feels like what you'd say if you want to get young pussy. You know what I mean? I also think that's a good way to, if you come quick with your girl, you're like, my biological age is 17. This is 7 minutes is a lot, actually, for a 17-year-old. Are you crazy? Now, if I bust quick, I'm very Southern and apologetic. I say, well, I do apologize. Madame, you are just too beautiful. And she says, well, can you get hard and have sex again later? I say, well, I can't overdose on the beauty. Mother taught me gluttony is the most cardinal of sins now. Well, I must be sleeping now. Your Uber awaits you. Prince Harry was hilarious because they did an interview with him and they were like, why'd you go so many times? And he was like, well, I went a few times and then I had to go a 5th time to tell him I'm never coming back ever again. Obviously, I'm English. You got to be polite. I can't just ghost the man. What are you, crazy? It's like your girlfriend seeing a nude photo on your phone and you're like, you know, babe, I'm going to go to her house and tell her to never send one of these ever again. That is one of the worst things to get called a pedophile, and they throw it around a lot right now. I won't. If my friend even shows me like, hey, you want to see a picture of my newborn baby? I'm like, nice try, Mossad. You're not gonna catch the kid slipping, you know. We were at a pool once, and my buddy, he was like, isn't it weird that the kids all have their shirts on in the pool? I'm like, I actually don't find that weird. Do you find that weird? I don't think a grown man should ever have the opinion that the kids have too much clothes on. He's like, no, I'm saying they're all fat now. I'm like, sounds like you're saying they're tasty, pal. That's what it sounds like. And by the way, I'm the opposite of a pedophile. I'm dating an older woman right now. She's 28. And, well, not older than me, obviously. We actually met the old-fashioned way, dollar bill on a string outside the shelter. And which is also how Epstein met Howard Lutnick. Okay, last pedophile. It is mainly a guy problem. You don't see a lot of female pedophiles. Probably why we had to make the tooth fairy a woman, because you can't tell children their teeth fall out, then Gary the fairy is gonna crawl in your window. Give your kid money for his teeth. Kids are gluing their teeth back in. Please don't tell Gary. I don't want Gary's money. If a grown woman's collecting kids' teeth, it's cute. If a grown man's collecting kids' teeth, that's the season finale of Special Victims Unit. Mariska Hargitay's got to bust down the door and save you from the pearly white predator. Ice-T's in the corner. This sick motherfucker. Collecting chiclets. It's not scary as a dude, right? If you went to a girl's house and found a bag of kids' teeth, you're not scared. You're like, this witch bitch probably knows about astrology, you know. She's gonna be asking me my sign and some bullshit. If you're a woman, go back to a guy's house and find a bag of children's teeth. You can try to run, but the doors have been fused from the outside. She goes, what'd you say? I'm still on the horoscope part. I signed the dollar sign. What's up?
Ooh, ride log. I did go see Big J Okerson last Friday. That was fun.
I don't know who that is.
Good time.
Is that a comedian?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm at with the whole idea of like comedic sets that use the pedophilic thing. It's like I can't laugh about it personally. Where I'm at with this whole thing, I can understand like a spectrum of different people who just like haven't been engaged with the information yet, and it being like a tool to prime them. I totally get that, but for me, I'm just like, I ain't got no chuckles on that note, bro.
Well, that's okay. I don't play the jokes just for you.
No. I'm just saying on my end, like if anyone's like looking at me like, why is he literally not laughed once? It's just like, yeah. It's an interesting thing, like what the conversation has become. And I think it was mentioned, I don't know if it was on Union or another podcast. It's like the volume with which the Epstein file searches are down and how it's almost like become this normalized thing that's sort of just like, well, is that like the idea? Is anyone doing anything in the face of it? Do you know what I mean? Where it's just like this acquiescing to that as, oh yeah, the common parlance of Massey calling it the Epstein regime and all that kind of thing. And it's
right.
like, yeah.
Operation Epstein Fury.
Yeah. Oh man, it's surreal.
Ted Cruz openly bitching about grok images of him at the freaking Jewish conference. I have that. I'll play it in a minute, but to kind of let's see if the jokes about it don't make you. Actually, Metzger does have a joke about this in his set, kind of, and it's that he hasn't watched the Dan Schneider molester documentary because he's backed up on molester documentaries. That's how fucked up everything is right now.
This is different than him screaming about, what is it, Michael Tracy?
Oh yeah. This is definitely which is a thing of beauty.
Yeah. Like I mean, Kurt Metzger
watching him use his whole chest to fuck you, Michael Tracy.
Yeah, Kurt Metzger is great at screaming a punchline. I'll tell you that.
Well, you're in luck, Tease.
Listening to acoustic guitar and scrolling through pictures in Windsor.
Here's the point: if I eat 3 babies, you can't do fucking shit. Let's not. I know. I see you trying to avoid my point, which is I could have ate 3 babies, and there will be no comeuppance. Do you understand that? You go vote, you bitches.
Oh,
keep voting. I'm sure that'll help you, stupid fuck.
This is getting crazy.
I know the right way. That's the left and the right. I know that's the right.
Listening to acoustic guitar and
yeah.
I couldn't understand the last bit. That was left of the right, like he was talking about demographics.
It's the left and the right. Oh, you're conservative.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. No, I mean, it's like I don't know. Oh man, dude, it's like it's so surreal. It's like are people awake? If they're awake, do they know what to do? If they do know what they do they know the next step? What do you do in the middle of like the earthquake of society itself? It's like, do you huddle under shelter? Don't go to a fucking Target, I'll tell you that. Like, yeah. Oh, crazy times, man. Crazy times.
Yeah, it's a little kooky.
It's
let's
like,
see.
are you just like on a regular tempo of going about your day? Like, oh, by the way, we're at war now again. It's just like, I know we are because we like do this all the time. But like when you go outside, is it just like looking around like a bunch of people who think they're at war? Or they're just like going to Kmart. And,
No, dude, no. Everybody is pretending.
Yeah,
From what I can tell.
Yeah,
like everyone's pretending,
Yeah.
especially people on the California coast who know if shit got really fucking weird, LA and San Francisco are gone, so we're all gone. You know what I mean? So you have to pretend that you're not in the immediate blast zone all the time.
Okay, wait. So do you mean like literally from invasion of the East? Gone?
No, I'm saying if it gets to a point where like intercontinental ballistic missiles start popping off, or technology that may not be nuclear but is advanced weaponry starts popping off in a true World War thing to advance a depopulation agenda to get rid of enough people to make the rest truly fully controllable, then this particular area, LA and shit like that, it's gone. It's gone.
I don't know if they're ever gonna go.
Me
hardcore.
either, but that's what everybody, especially the older generation here, the boomers and stuff like that fucking did all the duck and cover stuff. That's the propaganda that's been saturated. That's the only thing that's creating lines in their gray matter anymore, Tease, is that propaganda.
It's a really great point that is the mindset if it's not the truth. And the mindset
perception is reality for just about everybody.
That's why so few people have perception. They just have automatic feedback cycles from confirmation bias and reward that they were primed for in an entrainment procedure that was sold to them as if it was entertainment. And then when you try and explain it to them, they get mad at you. But yeah.
Noid and Vol has come out as a turtle.
I feel that way. I feel like the shell. I don't feel like the shell of a person thing. I feel like when I walk around talking to other people, it's a game of cups to find a cockroach running away from the light. And it's like, hombre, you're not the cockroach. The situation we're in is. It's like, sorry if you do that. That doesn't mean that's you. Sorry if it's uncomfortable to get away from that. That's the reality of the situation we're all in. Do you understand how to move if an ambulance is coming up? Cool. Do you understand what to do in response to the Third World War? No? Well, I sure do. It's kind of like just getting the message out there in a productive and solutions-oriented way is more important now than ever. And so, yeah, I think Bro's doing the talk that he did and the way that he did is an exemplary way of getting people to come and check out his stuff. And leading by example is important, and also having a variety of different voices in a variety of different places to then give commentary on that to drag Rhodes Scholar through the mud, because they are literally trained to destroy our lives. So it's pretty fucking surreal, man. Pretty fucking surreal. I don't know where I'm at with all of it. I'm just like shell of a person. Yeah, I hear that. You're muted, although your light is still lighting. I'm gonna I have to find something.
That's okay. Yeah, no, and I definitely don't want to stay on the conversation that Bros had yesterday. So we can we can move away from that. You'll make it 10 minutes maybe, and you'll want to start skipping about 10 seconds in.
About 10 seconds in.
No.
It's
right.
the light on your thing while you're talking. Keep talking.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay, so anyway. But yeah, you'll want to skip. And it really, once you hear Naomi Wolf talk for the first like 15 seconds, 20 seconds of her cutting off Derek or responding to Derek in any way, shape, or form. You'll have the totality of her argument. And as Ryan correctly pointed out, like the one lone point that she made in terms of Iran and nuclear material and stuff like that, it's a totally inverted fucking description of Iran holding down their end of the bargain in terms of nuclear non-proliferation, and Witkoff spun it as they're bragging that they're almost at nuclear, attainment. And it's like, I don't know. Everything about it was just terrible, easily fucking debunked propaganda from one party who had no idea what even the most basic rules of debate were, nor any intention of adhering to them. Did not bring her own argument, was reading off of note cards that probably weren't even in her handwriting.
Okay, so you're chalking this up to incompetence, not malice?
No. I'm saying this is what it, if you're just watching, this is what it looked like.
Okay.
This is what it looked like. I don't think Naomi Wolf is stupid, but I don't think she's smart.
But
you know what I mean? Because if she was smart, she wouldn't have had the career that she had.
Okay,
she's ambitious and she's mean-spirited, and if you're a third wave feminist, that's enough to build a career off of.
I think she is so empty that she gets consumed by and then becomes a part of the snake eating its tail empire cycle simply because of her own internal pathologies, nuanced whatever they may be.
Okay, I just do not know enough about her to have that assessment.
I'm kind of agreed, but I guess that's like a hypothesis, let's say. And it's more just like coming at it from the dynamic of what it is to exist in a Rhodes cycle, a Rhodes Scholar cycle of the educational platform that takes people in a secret society mindset to then groom them as an interchangeable asset for narrative management, plugged via the operating system that was installed in them through that education system.
Does that come with an assumption that they know what they're being used for?
No, I'm saying that they're an operating system. They're a walking, talking operating system. So the only way to be a walking, talking operating system is, one, to have certain pathologies that a predator class can prey upon, or through the opportunities that they provide for opportunists, ultimately capitalize on, And so she's like a encapsulative operating system that was installed into a person with certain pathologies who then went through the entrainment program of Rhodes Scholars. And they've been doing it over and over again with people who are preferential to certain vortexes of power. And so it's just like character types in demographics of psychopathy, sociopathy, narcissism, or some sort of compromise to their person that then sees them behave in a certain way.
All right.
Like, I don't know, like, what's the book?
So you are attributing it to malice, and not that she's just a useful idiot or a controlled opportunist. You think she's fully aware of what she's doing and went into that knowing that all she was going to do was ad hominems and filibuster and gish gallop and shit like that?
People know that they're doing is wrong, but they've been so acclimated to it that they basically just see it as wrong that is normal. Do you know what I mean? Like, at a certain point of, like, if you work in a slaughterhouse and you're just like doing that all day, it's like Chris was talking about, they have to rotate them out or they'll reach a certain point of insanity. You can think of soldiers deployed at war. The threshold is about 40 days or so before they're legally insane, and they'll still keep them deployed for years on end. So it's different spectrums of thresholds contained within different margins that within a cybernetic scaffolding would allow you to almost have them like tweaked dials. And then you can think of what people as tuning forks are attuned to based on their own resonance. Well, they're going to end up gravitating gravitating towards or through law of attraction almost, and attaching to something that is built to lure those people in, groom them, prune them, and then unleash them on the world. And so that's just kind of like what I take of her psychological profile. But anyway, like this was an old, interesting book, The Culture of Narcissism, American Life in the Age of Diminishing Expectations. But it's really funny. This is, I think the original date of publication was 77 or something. Oh, 62. Or no, I don't know. Where is it? Damn it. Hidden. 79 was when the idea of starting to write books about the crisis of narcissism and the problem that puts on parents. And then you can think of like the narcissistic overlap for the trans community and how many. So it's like, this is like a cyclical thing. And there's the other book over here where, what's it called? What's her name? Lainey Liberty, who was on Corbett and I met at the People's Reset conference, gave me a book, and I know I have it somewhere, but it's basically she had a narcissistic mother. I'll just sum it up that way. I can't find the book, but talking about the effects of what that imprinted on her personality. So much of occultism, and it's like Passio gave, like, sorry to keep going on a rant here, but it's a really important point. Passio gave a really great example in one of the interviews that I did on him with occultism. And what he was basically gave as the example of occultism in a mainstream way that we don't necessarily associate with occultism, but it very conspicuously is once you understand it, is the Edward Bernays like advertising scaffolding of trying to change the Betty Crocker recipe for an instant cake so that they needed to add the egg. Because initially it didn't sell at all. Nobody wanted it. They hated the product. They're like, fuck this, I'm not interested. They pooled the women who were buying the product and they asked them, okay, why is it that you're not buying this? And they said that they felt guilty. It's like they weren't doing enough. They weren't fulfilling their role as a mother. So the egg is in essence something that alludes to a woman's ability to offer herself through what she's presenting to her family. The ritualistic offering of the cooking with love to then nurture and provide for those around you. So you're literally hijacking the subconscious of the species in order to then pander to them so that they can feel included in a product that automatically, because of their own inclusion, becomes something they want more of. So it feeds upon itself, and then you feed other people shit because they interject that psychological distortion and warp the way in which we go about perceiving everything. And that is a nuanced, calculative manipulation of the psychology of people in a deep and profound way. Sorry, I literally didn't even catch that comment because I was trying to get that basically like process of how they manipulate people psychologically in a hierarchical scaffolding of cybernetics to a nuanced degree, preying on our pathologies that we then play into. That's how it works.
Uncle Slayton's got his Texan pride, back in the thickets with his Asian bride. He's got an Airstream trailer and a Holstein cow. Still makes whiskey cause he still knows how. He plays that Choctaw bingo every Friday night. You know he had to leave Texas, but he won't say why. He owns a quarter section up at Lake Eufaula. Caught a great big old blue cat on a drifting jug line. Sells his hardwood timber to the chipping mill. Cooks that crystal meth because the shine don't sell. He cooks that crystal meth because the shine don't sell. You know he likes that money, he don't mind the smell.